is really difficult and challenging. And even if this virus approaches a quote-unquote normal flu, it's really a serious thing.
It really is, and I think it's the unknown, and that's really got people scared. And you know, the flu is one thing; there's vaccines and so on and so forth, but this is obviously something different.
We will see. Futures at -18, Dow futures -164. Again, dollar churning, Swiss franc stronger, euro 108.52. The euro weaker. Stay with us. This is Bloomberg. We need to get the markets open.
Hey y'all, Jeff Foxworthy here. Now, if you've ever found yourself repeating the same thing over and over for 75 years, you might be Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
That's why I'm filling in for Smokey to switch things up, because there's a lot more to say. And I should know because my grandfather was a firefighter. And one of the things he taught me is that the people that love the outdoors the most are often the ones accidentally starting wildfires, which means always BYOB. No, bring your own bucket to the campfire. And be extra careful with things like burning yard trimmings. Don't just walk away, or chances are you might be starting a wildfire. So for the love of the outdoors, go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power Award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
For up to 50% off selected floors and beds, and up to an additional £250 off your total flooring order. Carpet Right for life. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey, have you heard? The Mayor of London has launched his latest van scrappage scheme to help tackle London's toxic air. Small businesses or sole traders like me with a polluting van could now get £7,000, which you could use to trade up to a Euro 6 vehicle. And you could get an extra £2,500 towards running costs if you go electric. The scheme is now even easier to qualify for, and it's open to any businesses with up to 50 employees, like mine. So, I'm going to search TfL Scrappage to see if I'm eligible and apply. You should do the same. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Vodafone 5G will have the power to change your world. From driverless cars to virtual reality and real-time gaming. That's why we're rolling out 5G across the UK. Discover Vodafone 5G on the UK's best mobile data network. The future's exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
NPerf testing awarded Vodafone Best 2019 mobile internet performance based on 35,664 tests on the NPerf app in the UK. Coverage may vary. Visit vodafone.co.uk.
Coming soon, Ricochet, the new action film written by, directed, and starring Euro Millions winner Timothy Barker, with music by Timothy Barker.
This Friday's Euro Millions jackpot is a massive £14 million. That's dream come true money. Euro Millions from the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Estimated jackpot. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
And good morning, I'm Karen Moscow, along with Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney. And the opening bell brought to you by SEI. With a 50-year history of innovation, SEI's outsourced solutions help achieve lasting success for investment managers, asset owners, private banks, and independent advisors. Learn more at SEIC.com. And stocks are lower at the open. The S&P 500 down 0.5% or 18 points at 3361. The Dow Jones Industrial Average down 0.6% or 185 points at 29,367. And the Nasdaq's down 0.8% or 75 points at 9650. 10-year Treasury up 3/32, yield 1.61%. The yield on the 2-year 1.42%. NYMEX crude oil up 0.6% or 32 cents at 51.50 a barrel. COMEX gold is up 0.4%. It is up $6.60 at 15.7820 an ounce. The euro 1.0855 against the dollar. The yen is at 109.77. Tom and Paul.
Thanks so much. Greatly appreciate it, Karen. This morning, I'm going to get Paul Sweeney's opinion on this before our guest hangs up on us. I am biased. There's different kinds of equity strategists, and Paul, some come from economics, great, and others come from following an industry and following a sector. And I really listen to the people who were analysts before they were equity strategists. Mine to be right and to occasionally be wrong on a stock.
Exactly right.
And that would be Tavis McCourt, technology guy.
Right, Tavis McCourt. Exactly. Raymond James, institutional equity strategist, joins us on the phone. Tavis, thanks so much for joining us here. You know, coming into the year after a 29% move up in the S&P 500 in 2019, a lot of folks were saying, all right, expectation-wise, let's think maybe some mid to high single-digit returns for the equity markets. Well, here we are. We're already up 4.5% in mid-February. What is your take for kind of performance expectations people should have for 2020 in the equity markets?
Well, I think the virus has really upset expectations, right? I mean, this market over the last month feels a lot like the trade war market, where you've had emerging markets under pressure, risk-free yields under pressure, commodities under pressure, and yet equities kind of levitate. But they do it in a very liquidity-centric way. So the money's just pouring into the most liquid indexes, and even within the S&P, the most liquid names within that index. And I expect that'll reverse once the impact of the virus is behind us several months from now. But I think that's probably the biggest theme that's changed versus 6 weeks ago.
So does that suggest here, given the uncertainties out there, large cap growth, let's just stick with it. Let's not try to find pockets of value, whether that's small cap or emerging markets?
Yeah, I'm actually a big believer in finding pockets of value. And you know, I call it kind of a rotation back into cyclicals, into small caps. I suspect it's going to happen when earnings growth expectations start to broaden out across the economy. And that was starting to happen in December and January, and coronavirus has basically delayed that. You've got a very significant dislocation in global economic growth, which is basically pushing money back into kind of liquid, safer bond proxies.
I hate to go to your core knowledge, but what does technology do? I mean, some of these stocks are priced to perfection, and other ones are, barely underpriced to perfection. I mean, what's your appetite for marginal share purchase of the various and sundry technology subsectors out there?
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things going on in the tech sector right now, but I think the primary reason why it's outperformed the last couple of years is just very, very material share buybacks, much more as a percentage of cash flow from operations than other sectors, and that'll start to wane this year and next. But I think that's kind of kept the sector performing very well, even when earnings were subpar.
Okay, well said. But as the margin persistent, I mean, everybody got wrong the persistent margins of Apple. Is it a proven margin persistency where you have to price in the present value of all that future share buyback from those ample cash flows?
Yeah, and you basically had 20 years roughly of accelerated share buybacks happen in roughly 2 years because of all the all of the cash that was offshore. So that benefited the sector. And the other things benefited the sector is, look, the earnings have been better. Like if you're looking for a cyclical kind of resurgence in earnings growth, of all the cyclical sectors, tech is the one where earnings have gotten better because frankly the supply chains are tighter, so it tends to feel in-market demand a lot faster than sectors like industrial, and so the earnings trend is helping out the sector as well. But the one thing I would point out, Tom, is because I did this yesterday, I thought it was fascinating. If you look at the large cap versus small cap bias across every sector in kind of a broad Russell 3000 index. Large caps in tech have outperformed small caps in tech by 27% since the trade war started. So the tech story is not universal across tech. It's very specific to large cap tech.
I mean, I don't want to go all Gabelli on you, Paul Sweeney, but the bottom line is there's this idea that share buybacks is not a good use of free cash flow. And I know it varies company to company, but the bottom line is these people are am I wrong? Tell me if I'm wrong.
No, I think
they're minting money,
minting
right?
cash. And as a growth company, as a tech company, as Tavis Wells knows, you'd like to see them reinvesting back in their own companies because that's where the growth is. But some of these companies, it's just so much cash, like an Apple's $60 billion of free cash flow. What do you do with it? So Tavis, as we think about just kind of valuations overall in the market, we got to be getting pretty rich here. I mean, you think about the performance we had in the S&P 500 in 2019. That was with little to no earnings growth whatsoever. So doesn't that suggest that valuations here in the market overall are stretched?
Well, it's a really bifurcated story. If you look at the S&P 500 trailing PEs, we've really only been more expensive than we are today during a period of time that we now call the tech bubble. Whether or not that'll be viewed in history as a tech bubble or not, we'll see. But if you look at mid-cap and small-cap indexes, we're not exceptionally cheap like we were last summer. We're not at 20-year lows like we were, but we're still kind of slightly below the median of the last 20 years. So the market is again, it's got a very significant liquidity bias to it, and that makes larger stocks more expensive when you look at kind of valuations and history than smaller stocks.
And you mentioned liquidity. I'm thinking about liquidity in the global marketplace. Is that created, there's been some concern that has created asset bubbles, and that may even include U.S. equity markets. How was that on your list of concerns?
I would say it would have been zero concern 2 years ago because there really was no evidence that you had this kind of large cap bias to returns or to valuations. It's modest now. We've had basically 2 consecutive years, little over 2 years of really significant PE inflation in large caps relative to smaller caps, which we had not seen for the previous 17, 18 years. So I wouldn't say it's the first thing on the concern list, but it's worth paying attention to now, and definitely colors the valuation talk, because it's hard to say stocks are expensive. You can say the 100 largest stocks are expensive, but broadly stocks are kind of average valuation.
Before I let you go, then, what is your call 12 months out? I mean, we're up 20-something% last year, 4 or 5% this year. We're down right now, negative 109 on the Dow with the markets trading, folks. But 12 months out, can you get all double-digit on us, Tavis?
I think we can. I think the big story in the market is going to be rotation versus overall index performance. We may get a little appreciation over the course of 12 months in the S&P, but I think that the big story is going to be how the returns really start to rotate into some of these cyclical sectors and into small cap indexes as earnings growth broadens out. We had a real earnings recession in a lot of parts of the economy in 2019, and as that recovers after the coronavirus, so it'll be several months from now, I suspect you're going to see this really big rotation within the equity indexes.
Tavis, thanks so much. Tavis McCourt with us with Raymond James this morning. I mean, the interviews this week, Paul, as I said earlier to John, they've been more bullish in tone than I've heard in ages. And on a Saturday or Sunday, I didn't expect to hear that this week.
No, and I guess one of the areas I'm going to focus on as we talk to smart people in the market is kind of, do they still have confidence in the earnings growth story out there for 2020? Because we did not have it in 2019. We don't really have it here in some of the results we've seen coming out of the fourth quarter. So the question is, how much do you feel good about an accelerating earnings growth story in 2020? Because if that doesn't materialize, then I think valuation concerns come back into the market.
For our audience, this is important, folks. Language means everything in economics, finance, investment. If Benjamin Laidler in London says earnings are troughing, translate that. That means they're not going down anymore?
I think a lot of people are suggesting that this fourth quarter results, which we're just getting through right now, Dave Wilson's bringing us great reporting, is, kind of the trough for earnings growth, and that you will see accelerating earnings growth beginning for some companies in the first quarter, but broadly across the economy and the S&P, second quarter accelerating into third, and then accelerating even more into the fourth quarter.
This is the percent growth or decrease of earnings. It's not the actual earnings. So if they're up 2%, which is, I guess, lousy, earnings troughing means maybe the next quarter they're up 5%?
Exactly. And then by the fourth quarter, we're hearing a lot of strategists, Tom, talk about double-digit increases, maybe 10, 11%.
Because you lose the bias of the previous years.
Yep. And, but that's all pre-coronavirus, so what's the global impact on GDP?
This is like 1 week before CFA level 1. Troughing, what does that mean? Negative 132 on the Dow. The VIX 14.53. With the news in New York City, here's Michael Barr.
Tom, Paul, thank you very much. President Donald Trump's nominee for the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, Judy Shelton, is facing scrutiny before the Senate Banking Committee today on her qualifications for the role. Shelton, a former economic advisor to Trump's presidential campaign, is a controversial pick because in the past she's challenged whether the institution should regulate the value of money and whether its mandate as set by Congress to pursue maximum employment and stable prices is meaningful. Trump has repeatedly attacked the Fed and its chairman, Jerome Powell, for not doing more to boost the economy. President Trump denied meddling in his former associate Roger Stone's criminal prosecution. The 4 lawyers who prosecuted Stone quit the case after the Justice Department overruled them and said it would lower the amount of prison time it would seek for President Trump's longtime ally. The president places the blame squarely on the prosecutors assigned to Stone's case.
I'm not concerned about anything. They ought to go back to school and learn, because I'll tell you, with the way they treated people, nobody should be treated like that.
Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal says Americans should be alarmed by the president's words.
We're in the midst of a perfect storm for American justice. A president who's corrupting the American justice system with utter contempt for the rule of law, an attorney general willing to be his political henchman, and a Republican majority that is morally spineless.
A Republican National Committee marked mailing circulating in several states that mimics an official U.S. Census survey has stoked outcry from Democrats worried it would lead to an inaccurate head count. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Tom.
And Michael Barr, thanks so much. Paul, the emails, the messages, carrier pigeons flying in with notes on our Poco Day. We're playing Poco.
Yep.
Bill nails it. He goes, you can't do Poco without mentioning J.D. Souther and Chris Hillman.
There you go.
Chris Hillman was an original Birds guy, did Flying Burrito Brothers, and I mean, there they were, and, all of this influenced a little bit of a brush thing on ZZ Top. Like, they affected ZZ Top. This is Bloomberg. Poco. Who knew?
This is a Bloomberg Pursuits look at luxury. Since Occupy Wall Street popularized the term the top 1% almost a decade ago, this exclusive group has only gotten richer and more influential. Are you in it? It depends on where you live. To join the group in the oil-rich United Arab Emirates requires more than $900,000, or 12 times more income than in India, a developing market so populous that the top 1% includes more than 13 million souls. In much of the developed world, an income of $200,000 to $300,000 gets you in the top 1%. In the U.S., you'll need about $500,000 in income per year. To reach the top 0.1% of Americans, that takes $2 million. Speaking of billionaires, Steve Cohen's deal to buy the New York Mets may have fallen through, but that doesn't mean they're not still for sale. In fact, they might be pricier. No preconditions regarding control of the team will be attached to the next bid, meaning the Wilpon family may actually reap more than the Major League Baseball record $2.6 billion that Cohen had agreed to pay. My man, Jerote, Bloomberg Radio.
25 years ago, NJIT graduate Dick Sweeney co-founded Keurig Green Mountain, a company whose incredible innovations changed the way the world brews a cup of coffee. Today, he lectures widely on business leadership and is a strong advocate for NJIT's work to combine business education with the power of STEM.
NJIT is definitely fostering the innovative thinking for budding entrepreneurs simply because that's the world we live in. NJIT is producing students that have been trained, educated, and given the business acumen to be a contributor to a company. The distinct mission is to develop great STEM scholars. The attributes I've always looked for in team members are heart, smarts, guts, and luck. So we want people with passion, intelligence, courage, and never discount luck. The student coming out of NJIT has experienced all of that.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Global news.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs, banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs, small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
The Mona Lisa is only 13 inches tall. The world's hottest chili, 1 inch. And Napoleon, taller than a Great Dane, but only by 71 centimetres. Who says small can't make an impact? The Peugeot 108 Allure is now available for just $159 per month with $159 initial rental. Our small but mighty car that doesn't have to cost you a small fortune. Peugeot Motor Company PLC, a credit broker not a lender, will introduce you to PSA Finance UK Limited. Personal finance lease, 48 months at 159, 18 plus, guarantee may be required. Terms, eligibility and return conditions apply. You will not own the car.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit tunein.com/premium to upgrade.
The comedian Louis C.K. is on tour now for the first time since his sexual misconduct against other comedians was brought to light. This week on the New Yorker Radio Hour, I'll talk with critic Hilton Alls about how Louis C.K. is addressing the issue in his act or not addressing it. And more broadly, we'll talk about when and how a disgraced performer should come back before the public. Listen to this episode of the New Yorker Radio Hour on TuneIn today.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow, and U.S. stocks are declining alongside European shares as officials in China deploy a revised methodology to diagnose the coronavirus, sending the number of confirmed cases soaring. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. The S&P 500 down 0.25% or 8 points at 3371. Dow Jones Industrial average down 0.33% or 99 points at 29,452. And the Nasdaq's down 0.4% or 39 points at 9685. 10-year Treasury up 3/32, yield 1.61%. Yield on the 2-year 1.43%. NYMEX crude oil is up 1% or 51 cents at 51.69 a barrel. COMEX gold up 0.25% or $4 to 15.7560 an ounce. The euro 1.0855 against the dollar. The yen is at 109.82. Alibaba Group holding warning that the coronavirus, responsible for killing more than 1,300 in China, is exerting a fundamental impact on the country's consumers and merchants and will hurt its revenue growth in the current quarter. Meanwhile, J.P. Morgan economist Bruce Kasman predicts the coronavirus will cause growth in the world's second biggest economy to plummet.
Well, the base case here is that we have a huge disruption that's very narrowly based in China and a few other countries in the month of February and in the first quarter. We have Chinese growth getting down to 1. It could even be flat.
And Tesla plans to offer about $2 billion of common stock as Elon Musk takes advantage of the electric car maker's surging shares. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Paul.
Thanks so much, Karen. Greatly appreciate it. You know, we asked for him like 5 days ago, and he's so large we couldn't get him. Part of the problem is he's been totally focused on the NBA because not only is Kevin Tynan like rock star auto guy, but he's like legit basketball dude.
College dude.
Like NCAA.
He can still suit up
Could you
right
have played
now.
at Duke?
I'm in the Hall of Fame at my college.
College, at St. Anselm College, where the debate was. It's true. That's where I went undergrad.
Large. What was it like playing ball back then versus what you see in the NBA right now?
Well, I was just up at school the week before the debate for the alumni basketball game, and what was interesting is that the short shorts are actually coming back.
Are they?
They are, because they're easier to play.
Is that good or bad?
Exactly. So
you never know where the conversation is going.
The short shorts coming back.
Is this appropriate for radio? Are we allowed to talk about short shorts?
I think we got to get. We got to get.
So done.
We got to get
Paul, would you explain that if a guy owns 7 cars, maybe he knows something about automobiles?
Yeah, Kevin's been covering the auto industry forever, including taking apart cars and putting them back together. He covers autos for Bloomberg Intelligence. So, Kevin, you take a look at the Tesla news here. $2 billion equity. It makes sense. I mean, the stock's gone through the moon. What do you think's going on here with Tesla? The story overall.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Beyond makes sense. It's almost a no-brainer, right?
Yep.
When you look at, even if there is any dilution, it's probably 2.5 million shares versus 9 just a couple months ago. Yep. For that same $2 billion. If there's a question, it's like, why not take down more at this point? The way the stock has rallied. So,
and the stock is essentially flat on the news today. So
and I think. You would hear people or investors say, it removes one of the sort of bearish overhangs about needing to raise capital. But it certainly wasn't a very detrimental to the stock price going back, since it's been on its run. So, I think they did what the smart thing. There's a lot of capital needs here. Remember, they've shown a Roadster 2.0. They've shown a Cybertruck. They're ramping production of Model Y, China factory, Berlin factory, which I think they'll fund, with leverage.
Okay.
He likes to do that. But a million robo-taxis on the road in 2020. There's a lot of big plans here, a lot of expansion to come. And if you look at the CapEx in 2019, it was $1.3 billion versus the $2.5 billion that they targeted. Again, that doesn't count what they took down from China to build the factory, but there's a lot of work to do with not a lot of R&D, CapEx, and SG&A that went out in 2019.
So are they, before we came on, I asked, are they actually making money on a unit basis, and how's that progressing for them?
Yeah. So, and operating costs are coming down. So, keep in mind, too, that it's a simple platform. They've been manufacturing for a bunch of years. 2013 was the first, or 2012, 2013 was the first model year, even though they don't really do model years of Model S. Then came X and then 3. So the longer these things go, they're not paying to retool significantly. So on a unit basis, they're fine. It's just really the scaling.
I got like 3 hours of questions for you, Kevin. And one of them that when we picked up the phone to try to get you in here 5 days ago is, did they have enough best practice engineering and production and battery ability where they're a takeout candidate? Does someone acquire them for brain power? Or are they just sort of niche, remote, discreet, and they'll always be this thing over there?
Well, not at this price, right? But I would say this, that I'm not sure, and this has been my argument all along. I mean,
and you've been bearish, conservative, however you want to phrase
realistic. My argument has been this: is what they do is make automobiles, and when I line them up against the global automakers, the Toyotas of the world, even the Volkswagen of the world, where their market cap is higher, I'm saying I don't see a ton of things that they do
that the others can't do just by themselves.
Correct.
Talk further on that. I think our audience really wants to expand on that.
There's certainly competitive advantages of the supercharging network, the brand image, the first mover advantage, but this has always been an industry, or the competitors that will say, we'd rather be late and have it be a little bit more expensive, prove that the demand is really there, and then we'll scale to that, than to say, let's be really early and wrong. And I think that's what the other automakers, where they're at, and you've probably heard me say this a million times, that there's this difference between the perception of the inability of the legacy automakers versus their inactivity. And I still think they're in that inactivity stage.
We're out of time, which is killing me. But Kevin, very importantly, are they going to lose the sex appeal to somebody like Porsche? I mean, Porsche's killing themselves on this. I know they've got Mission E and all the rest of it as well. Do they risk losing the Tesla-ness of it?
Well,
to some fancy car Sweeney would drive?
And it's interesting because Paul emailed me yesterday after the news of the recall, and I think like that's the kind of thing that probably drives them crazy. That automakers issue recalls, and now we issued a recall, so we're an automaker and not this tech company. You know, so that's the thing that I don't think they lose it to another automaker. I think if the market starts to realize they're an automaker, things like recalls, you know.
I gotta ask, how many cars do you own this week?
Oh, I've downsized. I'm getting ready to retire, I think.
No, you're not retired.
No, I'm kidding. I have more than I wish to count, but only a couple that I really love.
He's got, you know, in Connecticut, the garages, and of course, Tynan's got like 8 acres out there. He's got, you know, the studs have 3-car garage. Sure. He's got like 6.
But I have a lift, and I actually break my knuckles every weekend trying to keep things on the road.
It's not a bad. Kevin Tynan, thanks so much for joining us here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio. We appreciate the commentary on the auto business, on Tesla. Tesla coming to market, $2 billion worth of stock. Why not? The stock is through the roof. Let's take advantage of it. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Let's get this right, sir. You didn't see 3 men dressed as clowns take off in a van with a Renaissance painting because you were distracted by, and I quote, a sporty red compact SUV with a bold mesh grille, a sculpted bonnet with sweeping roofline on diamond-cut alloys.
And beautiful rear haunches.
So, you saw a Jaguar E-Pace. But what about the clowns?
What clowns?
Jaguar E-Pace, designed to steal attention. Search Jaguar E-Pace for up to 50% off selected floors and beds, and up to an additional £250 off your total flooring order. Carpet right for life. Terms and conditions apply.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
Hey, have you heard? The Mayor of London has launched his latest van scrappage scheme to help tackle London's toxic air. Small businesses or sole traders like me with a polluting van could now get £7,000, which you could use to trade up to a Euro 6 vehicle. And you could get an extra £2,500 towards running costs if you go electric. The scheme is now even easier to qualify for, and it's open to any businesses with up to 50 employees, like mine. So, I'm going to search TfL Scrappage to see if I'm eligible and apply. You should do the same. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
This is our story. The Birds of Prey.
Roman is building an army.
He's after all of us.
We gotta clean the city from the inside out.
Critics are saying Margot Robbie is brilliant as Harley Quinn.
Hi, boys.
A fantastic assault on the senses. An irresistible riot of popcorn fun. Brilliantly acted and very funny. 4 stars. Birds of Prey. In cinemas now. Certificate 15.
Vodafone 5G will have the power to change your world. From driverless cars to virtual reality and real-time gaming. That's why we're rolling out 5G across the UK. Discover Vodafone 5G on the UK's best mobile data network. The future's exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
NPerf testing awarded Vodafone Best 2019 Mobile Internet Performance based on 35,664 tests on the NPerf app in the UK. Coverage may vary. Visit vodafone.co.uk.
Major League Baseball is back. Are you ready to unlock the 2020 season with TuneIn Premium?
And this one is gone! It hits the foul pole!
Be there from day one with every single game of spring training, rivalry games, split squads, Cactus League, Grapefruit League. TuneIn Premium has it all. Then, when the pitch count starts for real, experience live and on-demand access to every game, everywhere you go, from opening day to the World Series. Don't miss out on the action. Search Premium to upgrade today.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
Is there any bank right now in the U.S. that you think is a buy?
Do you think Chairman Powell has lost the market?
Jeff Bezos is no dope. What's the big ka-ching?
The big question, I think, for investors is free cash flow.
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
The U.S. tariffs actually hurt both China and the U.S.
Large strategics are looking to either buy or invest in innovation.
Soybeans and corn have been basically at or below the cost of production for about 4 or 5 years.
What we see more bonds, more yield.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Good Thursday morning from New York City to our worldwide audience. Coming up, we're going to take a look at the municipal bond market and the impact the 2020 presidential election may have on that important market. Plus, we're going to get the latest on the coronavirus containment, what vaccines are being developed to address it. But first, let's go to Greg Jarrett of Bloomberg News for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Greg.
Paul, stocks are down, along with European stocks. Officials in China have deployed a revised method to diagnose the coronavirus, and that has set the number of confirmed cases soaring as stocks go down. Now, Bruce Kassman, J.P. Morgan chief economist, tells Bloomberg the coronavirus could prove very bad if it grows and continues.
But for now, I think the question is, do we get the recovery starting at the end of February or mid-March? And in that case, I think either way, by the time we're sitting here in June and July, we have had a very big disruption, but we haven't derailed the underlying story economy for this year, which is a positive one.
We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500 is down 0.4%, down 15. The Dow's down 0.6%, down 177, and the Nasdaq's down 0.6%, down 55. The 10-year is up 8/30 seconds with a yield of 1.6%. West Texas Intermediate crude oil is up 0.7% at 51.51 a barrel, while COMEX gold up 0.5% at 15.79.80 an ounce. The dollar yen 109.70. The euro $1.856. The British pound $1.3043. Tesla is selling about $2 billion worth of common stock, taking advantage of its surging shares just 2 weeks after Elon Musk said raising capital didn't make any sense. Right now, Tesla is down 1%. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Bloomberg Markets is underway with Lisa and Paul.
Greg Jarrett, thank you so much. It is interesting to see this shift in tone overnight. Granted, this risk-off isn't that risk-off considering the fact that we're just off record highs in the S&P and NASDAQ. But Dave Wilson, Bloomberg Stocks editor, joining us here in our Interactive Brokers studios. There seems to be suddenly a refocus on the unknown unknowns, right? The idea that we don't even have a sense of how vastly spread the coronavirus really is.
Yeah, I mean, that's true to a point. And you can, again, focus on some specific examples where that pops up. MGM Resorts is one that comes to mind. They withdrew their earnings forecast for this year because, the coronavirus is hurting business. They're in the Chinese city of Macau. They're in Las Vegas.
And not just in the city of Macau. They derive 27% of their revenue, I believe, from Macau. Yep. Right. And every day that Macau is basically shuttered in the wake of the coronavirus, they lose more than $1 million in revenue.
Right. So, put it all together. I mean, you've got a stock that's down roughly 5.5%. And you're seeing other companies that do business in Macau as well. Wynn Resorts, which gets a bigger percentage than MGM does from the Chinese city, down about 2.5%. You look at Las Vegas Sands at the moment, it's also down about 2%. I mean, not extreme moves by any means, but certainly examples that show you, just how much of a focus there is, especially given the bigger numbers that we're seeing out of China in terms of the cases and the deaths resulting from them.
So, Dave, are people just not eating processed food anymore? Look at Kraft Heinz, stock down 8.2% today.
That's part of it. And then part of it is just, that they've really kind of dug themselves into a hole relative to, sort of these upstart brands. So if you're going to buy somebody's food, it may be some small company and it's not Kraft, and they're trying to turn themselves around. So far, they haven't been able to do all that much. I mean, in a sense, because sales missed analyst average estimate in Bloomberg survey for the 5th straight quarter. That's the sort of thing that, definitely gets your attention given the challenges that they've already faced. And so you've got a stock that's down almost 8%.
Yeah, I'm seeing a research report out from Bloomberg Intelligence from the credit research analyst saying a Kraft dividend cut needed to stall junk downgrade. that would not be good.
Well, hold on a second. You still eat processed foods, right?
Sure, why not?
Okay. Did you feed your kids processed foods?
Probably, maybe a little bit more than we should.
Well, I mean, Dave, do you eat? I'm serious. I mean, honestly, this is sort of a question because there is this health focus, yet people still are eating processed foods. Let's not kid ourselves, right?
No.
I mean, if you look at Mountain Dew sales, for example, they've been on a tear. I know that's,
Cheese Whiz.
Well, I don't know.
Well, that's PepsiCo anyway.
Oh, that's PepsiCo, okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, anyway, moving right ahead. I mean, is that sort of the idea here?
Well, everything is relative, and this is. Let's face it. I mean, the story of the past several years. You put Kraft and Heinz together. You get 3G Capital involved. Their strategy was basically to cut costs. They had Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway behind them, and it worked until it didn't.
What I'm watching today is Cisco. They came out with worse than expected forecasts talking about business expenditures. And this is telling because we've seen really real pickup in the capital expenditure side of the equation as well as business confidence. How significant is this?
Well, it's the third quarter in a row where you're seeing Cisco shares lower in a substantial way in response to results, down 6.5% today. You go back to November, they fell almost 7.5%. You go back to August, they fell 8.5%. So this is, in a sense, kind of the same story. And it's a twofold challenge, really. It's the overall level of spending by businesses, and it's also a shift within networking because, Cisco's focus is on hardware, and increasingly you can use software to do the same sort of things that you might have done with hardware a few years ago. So that transition, Cisco's kind of gotten caught in to some extent. I'm just kind of looking, though, at how the shares have done. They really have, since the August disappointment, they've kind of stalled out here. So arguably what we're seeing is more of the same.
Interesting. Well, on that coronavirus theme and, the impact on the cruise ships and the casinos that we've been talking about, we'll dive into that a little bit deeper. Tuna Amobi from CFRA is analyst in the next hour. One thing I wanted to hit real quick, the Tesla news was interesting, a $2 billion stock offering. And what's amazing to me is, A, why don't they do more, given what the stock's done? Because why not? And B, the stock's kind of hanging in there today. I thought we might see a significant sell-off.
That's my takeaway.
Yeah, I mean, the latter is arguably the interesting part. I mean, especially given that 2 weeks ago, the CEO, Elon Musk, as we've been reporting, was kind of downplaying the idea that there might be a sale or that Tesla might need the money. And yet here they are, planning $3.5 billion of capital spending this year. You got to come up with the money from someplace, and they're choosing to do it from stock investors. And why not, given the way that the shares have gone? I think that's what it comes down to in the end, is that you've seen such strength in Tesla over time that having some extra shares out there is not the worst thing in the world.
It's interesting to me, though, that Elon Musk came out and said that he was not planning on ramping up spending last year. They tightened their belts, and they ended up producing a cash flow that really gave people optimism. Now, suddenly, he's reversing that, saying that they have a $3.5 billion expectation for capital expenditures. I'm just wondering at what point the euphoria around these shares starts to cool off in a more meaningful way as people start to understand that when you spend money, you're not going to make the same kind of cash. I mean, that's really because, or you're not going to at least have enough of a cash profit at the end of the day, which was exactly what was rewarded for Tesla in the latest quarterly report.
Well, let's face it, Tesla is a growth company right now. It'll be a growth company for some time as they get more established. I mean, we're talking about building a factory in Germany like they have a factory in China, and at some point, I mean, it's going to become just a more established business, and what happens then will be interesting. You've got analysts looking for profits out of the company every quarter this year. That's something that they haven't delivered so far, though they have had some quarterly profits. So it'll be a matter of how well they can deliver on those projections, because, it's all about the path to profitability, as we've said time and time again, usually in different contexts, but it certainly applies to Tesla as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for being with us. Dave Wilson, Bloomberg Stocks editor, joining us here in our interactive broker studios, and talking about that path to profitability. Airbnb expected to have one of the biggest IPOs probably later this year, and the Wall Street Journal reporting this week that they actually had a net loss in the fourth quarter from a profit earlier. Just a question here about how well that will go given this focus on profitability. Right now, let's head down to our 1991 studios in Washington, D.C. Nancy Lyons there with World and National Headlines. Nancy.
Hey, Lisa, thanks. New leadership is in place in China's Hubei province after the previous party head was dismissed over his handling of the coronavirus outbreak. Shanghai Mayor Ying Yang says he's sure that he'll be able to contain the virus. But Dr. Jennifer Rohn, a microbiologist with UCL in London, tells Bloomberg Surveillance it's unclear now if China does have a handle on the situation.
Things were looking a little bit predictable. It looked as if the virus, although it was still going strong in China, appeared to be heading toward a plateau. But overnight, that all changed. And it's looking now as if there may be many more cases than we initially thought, because they've now revised the way that they're diagnosing the patients over there.
The number of officially diagnosed coronavirus cases in the Chinese province of Hubei has surged to nearly 50,000. That's after the Hubei provincial government did begin adding cases that were confirmed via imaging scans, along with the previous method of nucleic acid testing kits. Well, staying on that side of the globe, a powerful earthquake has hit off Japan's northern coast, deep below the ocean's surface. Officials say so far there are no reports of any serious damage or injuries, no danger of a tsunami. Japan's meteorological agency says the quake measured magnitude 7. Former White House Chief of Staff John Kelly is outlining some of his concerns about President Trump's policies and actions at a lecture at Drew University last night. Kelly defended impeachment witness Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, who was recently ousted by the administration. Kelly says he did exactly what he was taught to do when he raised concerns about the president's phone call with the president of Ukraine. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Nancy Lyons.
Two people who are as fascinated by the markets as you are.
What's your sense of the competitive landscape in the cloud business?
Lisa Abramowitz.
People were talking about potential regulatory pressure.
And Paul Sweeney.
Are you seeing flows into ESG ETFs?
Bloomberg Markets.
What's your main conversation today with some of these corporate executives?
Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern.
They're spending a lot of money there.
On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
You're fierce. You take care of business and don't hold back. Taking care of your health shouldn't be any different. You know when something's off. Don't ignore symptoms like fatigue, joint pain, and rashes. Listen to your body. It could be lupus. We're here to help you take control. Learn how at BeFierceTakeControl.org. Brought to you by the Lupus Foundation of America and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies. Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
You took the first step and quit smoking, but even former smokers may still be at risk for lung cancer. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know about a new low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early. It takes only 60 seconds and could save your life. You took the first step, now take the next. Visit SaveByTheScan.org for a simple quiz to see if you're eligible and talk to your doctor about screening. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
At the Bank of Santander, they've created Stan, a smart bot that can predict the future of remortgaging.
I'll read Stan. Will my mortgage rate go up?
1955 was the last time Newcastle won the cup.
No, and try not to mumble.
Playing, let's get ready to rumble.
Meanwhile, at Santander, they can't predict your future, but they'll help secure it with great mortgage rates fixed for up to 10 years. See what's possible at Santander.
Early repayment charges apply. Lending subject to status and criteria. Your home may be repossessed if you do not keep up repayments on your mortgage.
Finding your perfect new home can be tough. So if you keep missing out,
it's time to search out.
There are thousands of new properties to buy or rent every month at onthemarket.com. 24 hours or more before they're on Rightmove or Zoopla. See them first. Set up a property alert today.
Search onthemarket.com to find your perfect home.
If you're in the market, search onthemarket.com. See onthemarket.com/new and exclusive. Agents specify exclusivity.
At Wix, we'll create your dream kitchen from design to show-off ready and take care of everything. And now, save a third on showroom kitchen units. Book your free design appointment today. Cure your house embarrassment with Wix. For minimum spend, terms and exclusions, see wix.co.uk.
This is our story. The Birds of Prey.
Yeah. Roman is building an army. He's after all of us. We gotta clean the city from the inside out.
Critics are saying Margot Robbie is brilliant as Harley Quinn.
Hi, boys.
A fantastic assault on the senses. An irresistible riot of popcorn fun. Woo! Brilliantly acted and very funny. 4 stars. Birds of Prey. In cinemas now. Certificate 15.
You could find a $5, a $10, a $20, or even a crisp 50 inside the Sun on Sunday. That's right, cash. Yes, real banknotes inside the paper. We're giving away a wallet-busting amount of cash this weekend only in the Sun on Sunday. It pays to read The Sun. T's and C's apply.
It was a Sunday morning when I jumped on the tube.
And decided to pop down to Greenwich via
a large indoor jungle.
And when I got there, I was captivated by a sparkling
scary dinosaur just standing there right in front of me.
So off we went to Wembley Park
to look at the colourful fish.
Tap into the wonderful world of Off-Peak London. Travel in zones 2 to 6 for £1.50. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
£1.50 is an adult off-peak pay-as-you-go fare for a journey not going via Zone 1 on Tube, DLR and most London Overground services. Always touch in and out with the same card or device to pay the right fare.
Had the same job for the last 15 years. Working with the same people, in the same office, drinking tea from the same comedy mug, eating the same crayfish and rocket sandwich every lunchtime, using the same business jargon, and climbing the same greasy pole. What does that even mean? Then maybe it's time to switch it up, starting with the all-new Vauxhall Corsa. With its bold styling and up to 70 miles per gallon. To switch it up, visit your local Vauxhall dealership or search New Corsa. Official WLTP test figures for comparison purposes only. Real-world figures may vary.
The B&Q 3-for-2 paint offer is now on. Get an unmissable 3-for-2 on coloured emulsions such as Dulux, Farrow & Ball and Valspar. Don't miss out on this show-stopping deal. Get to B&Q. You can do it when you're 3-for-2 it. Excludes white and ready-mix trade. Every third item per single transaction is descending price order free. Offer ends 24th of February. See DIY.com.
Breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
The S&P is a bit lower a day after hitting some more fresh records. Jump in infections in China undercut optimism. The spread of the virus is slowing. Treasuries trimmed an earlier gain after a mixed reading of American consumer prices. We look at the numbers every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500 is down 0.3%, down 11. The Dow's down 0.5%, down 142. And the Nasdaq's down 0.3%, down 34. The 10-year is up 5/32, the yield 1.61%. West Texas Intermediate crude is up 0.9% at 51.62 a barrel, with COMEX gold up 0.5% at 15.7980 an ounce. And dollar yen is at 109.71. The euro $1.0847 and the British pound $1.3063. Kraft Heinz is down today after reporting a decline in fourth quarter sales. The latest sign the maker of Maxwell House coffee and Grey Poupon mustard has a long road ahead. Right now, Kraft Heinz is down 8.1%. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
You're listening to Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Paul, you've been banging this drum for a while. Rates right now for tax-exempt debt are the lowest in more than 6 decades.
Yep.
The big question is, why aren't states and localities borrowing more to build things like a bridge that's better or a tunnel that's better from New Jersey to New York?
If you want to
have your pet project given a shout out here, there is a question: what can derail the incredible incredible rush of money that's going toward municipal debt. Joining us now to talk about that, Catherine Steenstra, Senior Portfolio Manager and Head of Municipal Investments at Columbia Threadneedle Investments, which has $469 billion of assets under management based in Minneapolis. She joins us here in our interactive broker studios. Catherine, I want to just get started. We talk a lot about the election coming up in November. Is this something that could actually derail the rally that we've seen in muni debt?
We do not believe that the election will derail it. So far, what drove performance in 2019 was a positive technical backdrop. We're seeing that continue into 2020, and the flows are still continuing. State and local tax deduction cap, that certainly was a main driver of flows last year, is continuing. That is set in place until 2025, so we're not expecting any changes on that. And also a supply side of that, we're seeing more taxable municipal issuance into our market, refinancing tax exempt, so therefore less tax exempt supply. So those technicals are still in place right now. So we expect that will continue this year. We're certainly not expecting, the robust demand that we saw last year, that $93.5 billion of flows. We're already off to a great start, however, over $7.5 billion inflows so far year to date. And then, of course, the Treasury yields. Last year, we know that they fell dramatically. That was supportive of the muni market, the flight to quality. We saw that in January, some volatility there with, of course, the geopolitical risk as well as the coronavirus now. That caused Treasury rates to fall roughly 35 basis points. Munis followed that path. So very supportive there. And as far as the election, back to your original question, we may slow down. Flows could go a little sideways as we get closer to the election. But right now, because of those positive technicals, we think we're going to see more of the same.
All right. You mentioned this thing called a taxable municipal market. To me, that's an oxymoron. I invest in municipal bonds for the tax exemption associated with the yield. What is the taxable investment municipal bond market, and who plays in it?
Well, the taxable municipal issuance that we're seeing now, that it's certainly picked up in the last half of 2019, and we're continuing to see that. Foreign investors are buyers. You have corporate buyers,
and they're just looking for
buyers.
Yield. Foreign investors,
they're looking for yield because we know that yields are very low or certainly negative in certain situations. So it's a very attractive opportunity. It offers diversification. Municipal bonds, as we know, are a very stable asset class, and there's a zero to negative correlation to equities. So there's a reason that you're seeing more demand and interest in the municipal market.
I was reading your research, and you noted that you had gotten out of Puerto Rico debt a while back, and yet it's starting to look a little more attractive. Are you actually starting to buy Puerto Rico notes as they get closer to finalizing their restructuring?
Yeah, so Puerto Rico is the hot topic, right, this week. There's so much going on right there, and certainly looking more closely at it. The COFINA debt that was restructured last year in 2019 has more legal covenants to it and more structure. The sales and tax use that is dedicated to support this is definitely a sector that we like, or an issuer, I should say. As far as the geo debt and the PREPAs, it's still playing out, trading up and trading down. And there's a lot that, is still remains to be seen on this.
But what does it say about the state of the market that people are seeing Puerto Rico as being a really viable option, given the fact that they're restructuring their more than $70 billion bankruptcy, and given the fact that they still face so many economic woes? I mean, how concerned are people about froth and this idea that you're just sort of looking for anything to buy, given the glut of cash and the lack of supply?
And that just shows you how tight the high yield market valuations are, because there's so much demand out there for high yield that it's forcing almost buyers into a market where the high yield is, the new issuance is less. So you have this demand that's chasing yields lower and lower, and it's an area that we're very cautious on because we're closer to the end of a potential cycle here. Spreads are tighter, and we want to move up in quality, not abandoning high yield, certainly, but more in the double B and single B, and up in quality in our investment grade as well. It just feels like the high yield market is certainly overvalued and one that we want to be very cautious on.
Catherine Stienstra, thank you so much for joining us, Senior Portfolio Manager and Head of Municipal Investments for Columbia Threadneedle Investments based in Minneapolis. But we're happy to say it's joining us here in our Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio on this cold, well, it's kind of cold, but a rainy day here in New York City.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. It's such an interesting time where there's such a technical force driving investors into some of these riskier fixed income areas. You just have to wonder, there doesn't seem to be anything that's going to stop the train, and yet...
Yes, and yet that's kind of what we always say before things kind of go off the rails. And yet, looking at the market, just a quick data check here. S&P 500 off about 12 points right here. The Dow Jones Industrials off 152. That puts the Dow at 29,000, about 399 right there for the Dow Jones. NASDAQ off about 37 points, about 0.4% on the NASDAQ. That's at 9688. We've been keeping an eye on crude. Another update here, up about 0.5% on WTI. Crude at $51 a barrel. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Stocks are lower. China deployed a revised methodology to diagnose the coronavirus, sending the number of confirmed cases soaring. That has raised fears about the outlook for global growth. Cisco Systems is giving a sluggish sales forecast. It said revenue this quarter may decline more than analysts projected. The company is predicting its second straight quarter of revenue contraction. It's an indication that corporations are still cautious about increasing spending on computer networks. The parent company of T-Mobile reportedly wants to negotiate that $26.5 billion takeover of Sprint. Deutsche Telekom wants a lower price because Sprint shares have fallen, trading below their level when the deal was proposed 2 years ago. And the bull market is creating plenty of millionaires. According to Fidelity Investments, there's now a record number of people with $1 million or more in their 401k or individual retirement accounts. The total, roughly 441,000 as of December 31st. Courtney Donahoe, Bloomberg Radio.
Melissa from Michigan. I work an extra part-time job serving lunch at my child's school, but I still can't afford to put food on our table.
Daniel from California. Choosing whether to pay the rent or pay to fix the car to get to work doesn't leave us with much at all. Now we can't even pay for meals.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
Switch to 5G on Vodafone. Pre-order the new Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra 5G by March 8th and get wireless Galaxy Buds Plus for free. With unlimited 5G data, you can post 108 megapixel photos and download videos impossibly fast, all on the UK's best mobile data network. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
5G subject to coverage in your area. MPerf test awarded Vodafone Best 2019 Mobile Internet Performance. Minimum term applies. See vodafone.co.uk.
TSB's Fix and Flex loan offers one of the best rates you can get. 2.9% APR representative fixed for up to 5 years. On loans from £7,500 to £25,000. Subject to status, UK residents only over 21. Based on de facto data, January 2020.
One of these days, these boots are gonna walk all over you.
Sign up to Walk All Over Cancer with Cancer Research UK. Walk 10,000 steps every day in March, and together we will beat cancer.
Are you ready, Boots?
Are you ready? It's not long till March.
Start walking.
Use the 10,000 Steps a Day Challenge to explore London, get fit, and help beat cancer. Come on, search Walk All Over Cancer and sign up now.
The B&Q 3-for-2 paint offer is now on. Get an unmissable 3-for-2 on coloured emulsions such as Dulux, Farrow & Ball and Valspar. Don't miss out on this show-stopping deal. Get to B&Q. You can do it when you're 3-for-2 it. Excludes white and ready-mix trade. Every third item per single transaction in descending price order free. Offer ends 24th of February. See DIY.com.
Good morning. This is your Southern service to London, Victoria. Join in our onboard quiz. Here's our next clue. What C sounds like a handheld party food but keeps you dry and protected from the rain? Not canapes, canopies.
At Southern Railway, we're investing over £7 million into making improvements for you, like canopies, cycle parking and new platform lighting across more of our stations. Find out more and book your tickets at southernrailway.com. Southern Railway, we're with you.
The comedian Louis C.K. is on tour now for the first time since his sexual misconduct against other comedians was brought to light. This week on the New Yorker Radio Hour, I'll talk with critic Hilton Alls about how Louis C.K. is addressing the issue in his act or not addressing it. And more broadly, we'll talk about when and how a disgraced performer should come back before the public. Listen to this episode of the New Yorker Radio Hour on TuneIn today.
Major League Baseball is back. Are you ready to unlock the 2020 season with TuneIn Premium?
And this one is gone! It hits the foul pole!
Be there from day one with every single game of spring training, rivalry games, split squads, Cactus League, Grapefruit League. TuneIn Premium has it all. Then, when the pitch count starts for real, experience live and on-demand access to every game, everywhere you go, from opening day to the World Series. Don't miss out on the action. Search Premium to upgrade today. The 2020 NBA All-Star Game is live on TuneIn Premium. Catch every fast break, fadeaway, and alley-oop as Team LeBron and Team Giannis go head-to-head in Chicago.
Deep three, and in! Oh, man! 5 to shoot, LeBron long three, good!
Which star will shine the brightest? Who will be named this year's MVP? Find out Sunday at 8 Eastern with ESPN Radio's live coverage of the NBA All-Star Game on TuneIn. Search Premium to upgrade today.
A lot of people aren't aware that TuneIn lets you listen to the same terrestrial stations that you pick up on your FM AM dial, except you can hear them from anywhere. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Coming up, the confusion around the coronavirus growing. We try to get some clarity with Max Neeson, Bloomberg Opinion healthcare columnist. Plus, we speak with Damian Sassower of Bloomberg Intelligence about emerging markets as Lebanon careens toward default. Right now, though, let's head over to our own Greg Jarrett for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Greg.
Stocks are still in the red, Lisa, following declines overseas. This all after China reported a sharp spike in deaths and infections from the new virus after the hardest hit province of Hubei applied a new classification system that broadens the scope of the diagnoses. Andrew Sheets, Morgan Stanley, tells Bloomberg coronavirus will clearly affect first quarter earnings this year.
And so if I'm thinking about the market from a bit of a tactical perspective, actually near term, maybe markets are more forgiving to data weakness and are willing to give things more of a benefit of the doubt. But then the greater risk might actually lie in a couple of months when the data, which by that point is supposed to improve, if it does not.
We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500 is down 0.4%, down 12. The Dow's down 0.6%, down 174, and the Nasdaq's down 0.4%, down 37. The 10-year's up 7/30 seconds. The yield is 1.6%. West Texas Intermediate crude is up 0.4% at 51.38 a barrel, with COMEX gold up 0.5% at 15.80 per ounce. The dollar yen 109.70. The euro's $1.839, and the British pound $1.30.55. Key measure of U.S. consumer prices remained subdued for the month of January as accelerations in shelter costs and apparel were offset by weakness in used vehicles and medical care goods. The core consumer price index, which excludes volatile food and energy costs, was up 0.2% from the month before and 2.3% from a year earlier. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
Bloomberg Opinion, informed perspectives, and expert data-driven commentary on breaking news.
It's 10:33 on Wall Street. Time to check in with Bloomberg Opinion. We're joined by opinion columnist Max Neeson, covers biotech, pharma, and healthcare. He joins us here in our Bloomberg 1130 studio. So, Max, we have a sell-off on the market today, due in part to some new news about the coronavirus that it perhaps has been underreported by as much as 15,000 cases. What's the latest that you think is real that we need to be focusing on right here?
Yeah, so I don't know how surprising this should be to people in the market. It certainly seems to have been. But there's been sort of a huge testing backlog, a lot of suspected cases that hadn't been confirmed, just because, there's so many that, and the tests, they take a while, only so many kits. And difficult to get things into Hubei province, that it's not surprising that there are lots of cases out there that hadn't been technically confirmed. So I wouldn't say that this indicates, you see that scary number, you might think, oh, there's been a dramatic acceleration in the number of cases or in the severity of the outbreak. Well, it certainly is serious and could continue to spread further. But this was more of a case of just sort of catch up than anything else. But not that, we still shouldn't take this very seriously.
But it raises a question about containment and how good of a job China is doing in that effort. Does this give any more clarity to that point?
I'm not sure that it does, because it's still cases that are at the origin, at the epicenter. Those 15,000 new cases are in Hubei province around Wuhan. If this were a situation where that number of cases were to occur, in other provinces or outside of China, then there might be a more significant worry about containment. At the same time, the fact that there are these tens of thousands of people, that there was this sort of backlog of cases, people that had the disease, were exposed but hadn't been confirmed, just goes to underscore the fact that, it probably is bigger than the official numbers suggest. And, any time that you have this many cases and a disease that sometimes presents this mildly, containment is fundamentally going to be extremely difficult. There may be sustained transmission elsewhere that, people just don't know about. So, we're still very much in the early innings here.
So, Max, can you refresh our memory on the incubation period? I'm trying to get a sense of when, in theory, this week we should start to see a peak maybe in some of these cases. Is it in the next week or two, or maybe further down the road?
Given the fact that we're still seeing so many new cases and that the numbers kind of fluctuate, it makes it really difficult to predict when the peak might come and if it will. And that incubation period, it's still, since this is a novel disease that we're still learning about, can't quite be sure that the 14-day thing that you've heard is the one that, ultimately, when we, rate the history of this epidemic in years to come, that'll be the number that'll still be there. So still hard to tell when exactly the peak will be.
There's also a question when we write the history book of which company and which country will get to some sort of vaccine first. Gilead said to be working on some vaccine for the coronavirus that they're looking to get patented. What's the latest on that?
So the Gilead drug is a medicine, actually not a vaccine, something they developed for Ebola that showed signs in lab tests that it could have an impact on similar diseases, MERS, SARS. So, but not something that's been confirmed in widespread human trials. That's what's happening right now. They're testing this, not a purpose-built drug, but a potential option. It's in a clinical trial right now. We'll know relatively rapidly whether it is something that could be an option and should be produced at a broader level and spread to more countries, spread to more people. The question about vaccine, that's going to be something that's going to take a little bit longer. We're months away from even having human trials, let alone confirmation that it works, and then let alone getting it up to scale. I'm honestly not sure that it'll happen in time to be useful unless we kind of have a worst case scenario where this is a new disease that just lives in the world like influenza. Then it might be a case where the vaccine will be relevant. But for right now, the thing that's going to be most impactful are probably these early stage tests. Hopefully we can accelerate it. This is already happening on a faster timeline than we've seen previously, using new approaches, but we're still a ways off from a vaccine.
Max, just real quickly, I know you wrote a column about a week ago about China trying to get that patent from the Gilead. What's the latest there?
So some question as to whether they actually want to go out and get the patent and start producing this drug, or whether it was just sort of a leverage move in the case that Gilead medicine does turn out to work. They can kind of wave this threat over their heads to get a more favorable deal on licensing, or they could, if it works and the outbreak continues to worsen, they could outright seize the patent and start producing the medicine. That has consequences down the line. It makes companies less willing to spend what it takes to develop and produce these medicines. So that'll be kind of the back and forth and the decision over whether China ultimately does pursue, taking that patent over.
Max Neeson, thank you so much, as always. Max Neeson, columnist with Bloomberg Opinion, covering all things healthcare. You can find his columns. They're really always wonderful. Bloomberg.com/opinion or OPIN. Go on the Bloomberg. Certainly, it seems like people revising their comfort level with this idea that there'd be some plateauing in cases later this month as we find out we know even less about how to diagnose and how widely it is spread. Right now, let's head down to our 991 studios in Washington, D.C. Nancy Lyons there with world and national headlines. Nancy.
Well, Lisa, as you were mentioning, China has been reporting new deaths, and the spike in coronavirus cases now up to 254 in China, with more than 15,000 cases. This is after the hardest hit province of Hubei applied a new classification system that broadens the scope of the diagnoses for the outbreak, which has spread to more than 20 countries. World Health Organization spokesman Tarek Yasarevich says the experts are still trying to figure out the risk.
It's really too early for us to make any predictions. So we don't know exactly where this outbreak will go. It can go either way.
So far in the U.S., there have been 14 confirmed cases, globally more than 60,000. Retired U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch, received a standing ovation last night while receiving an award at Georgetown University. She's the career diplomat who unwittingly became one of the central figures in the impeachment drama after being reassigned from her position. She warned those in attendance last night new leaders at the State Department are lacking moral clarity and leadership skills, while others feel bullied.
Officers are increasingly wondering whether it is safe to express concerns about policy, even behind closed doors.
She says the traditional policy process has been replaced with one that does not include discussion, just dictates from those above. Closing arguments in the Harvey Weinstein sexual assault trial are taking place today. Defense attorneys are expected to say there are too many contradictions. The testimony of 6 accusers who took the witness stand. Prosecutors have said Weinstein lured the women to hotels on the pretense of promoting their acting careers. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg.
Vatsal Shah is Senior Project Engineer at Mott MacDonald, a global engineering consultancy with more than 16,000 employees. He earned his PhD at New Jersey Institute of Technology, and as an adjunct professor is helping NJIT students explore emerging technologies.
My focus is renewable markets, emerging technologies, the idea of floating cities. What are we doing to develop that? What will happen to the city on the water? Well, you're going to have waves hitting it. You're going to have solar. How are you going to develop plants? How are you going to develop vegetation and farming? That sort of thought process happens at NJIT. We actually plan out what will the city look like. How do we develop that? So in 10 years, we're actually ready to take on those challenges when we have our first development in the water. NJIT also has been doing a lot of work in self-healing materials. So taking the polymers and the new material that we have in our material sciences departments and putting them into things like concrete, things like steel, reinforcing our soil.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Rich is just a really, really good guy. The term good egg isn't enough to describe him. He's also certified organic and free range. Rich puts the cap back on everything. The toothpaste, the olive oil, the shampoo, everything. He lets his 10-year-old nephew beat him at virtual tennis, even though he can straight up slay his 10-year-old nephew in virtual tennis. When the toilet paper is running low, Rich replaces the roll on the actual holder, not just on the back of the toilet. Rich is texting and driving. Rich? No. What are you doing, Rich? I was just telling everyone how great you are. Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopRex.org, a public public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
At the Bank of Santander, they've created Stan, a smart bot that can predict the future of remortgaging.
All right, Stan, will my mortgage rate go up?
1955 was the last time Newcastle won the cup.
No, try not to mumble.
Playing, let's get ready to rumble.
Meanwhile, at Santander, they can't predict your future, but they'll help secure it with great mortgage rates fixed for up to 10 years. See what's possible at Santander.
Early repayment charges apply. Lending subject to status and criteria. Your home may be repossessed if you do not keep up repayments on your mortgage.
Suffering from house embarrassment? At Wickes, there's buy one, get one half price on all interior paint, including Dulux. Ends Monday. Terms apply.
You could find a fiver, a tenner, a 20, or even a crisp 50 inside the Sun on Sunday. That's right, cash! Yes, real banknotes inside the paper. We're giving away a wallet-busting amount of cash this weekend only in the Sun on Sunday. It pays to read The Sun. T's and C's apply.
They don't chant your name when you give blood, or sing songs about you. But patients and their families will remember you forever. Because your blood can change their lives. We need more blood donors in Tooting, the West End, and Edgware. Bleed for London. Join us today at blood.co.uk.
Do you go on the same holiday every year? To the same country, in the same hotel, with the same sea view? Visit the same ancient monuments, lay by the same dolphin-shaped pool, meet the same Barrys and Sandras, and wear the same Hawaiian shirt that you'd never wear at home? Then maybe it's time to switch it up. Starting with the all-new Vauxhall Corsa, with its bold styling and up to 70 miles per gallon. To switch it up, visit your local Vauxhall dealership or search New Corsa. Official WLTP test figures for comparison purposes only. Real figures may vary.
A lot of people aren't aware that TuneIn lets you listen to the same terrestrial stations that you pick up on your FM AM dial, except you can hear them from anywhere. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
The 2020 NBA All-Star Game is live on TuneIn Premium. Catch every fast break, fadeaway, and alley-oop as Team LeBron and Team Giannis go head-to-head in Chicago.
Deep three, and in! Oh, man! 5 to shoot, LeBron long three, good!
Which star will shine the brightest? Who will be named this year's MVP? Find out Sunday at 8 Eastern with ESPN Radio's live coverage of the NBA All-Star Game on TuneIn. Search Premium to upgrade today.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
Major League Baseball is back. Are you ready to unlock the 2020 season with TuneIn Premium?
And this one is gone! It hits the foul pole!
Be there from day one with every single game of spring training, rivalry games, split squads, Cactus League, Grapefruit League. TuneIn Premium has it all. Then, when the pitch count starts for real, experience live and on-demand access to every game, everywhere you go, from opening day to the World Series. Don't miss out on the action. Search Premium to upgrade today.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
U.S. stocks are down, so are European shares. All this as officials in China deployed a new way to diagnose the coronavirus. And that sent the number of confirmed cases soaring, which sent the markets down. We look at those numbers every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500 down 0.25%, down 8. Dow's down 0.5%, down 143, and the Nasdaq's down 0.2%, down 21. The 10-year is up 6.30 seconds. The yield is 1.60%. West Texas Intermediate crude is up 0.3% at 51.36 a barrel. COMEX gold's up 0.5% at 15.7980 an ounce. The dollar yen stands at 109.71. The euro $1.844. and the British pound $1.3063. American Airlines wants to establish Seattle as an international gateway for westward flights to India and beyond. With help from a reinvigorated partnership with Alaska, nonstop service to Bangalore from Seattle starts, in October. Right now, American Airlines is down 2%. Alaska is up 0.9%. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
You're listening to Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
It seems like all the oxygen has been sucked out of the economic news front, with all of it going to the coronavirus and the potential economic fallout. But within the world of emerging markets, there have been a number of other pretty dramatic stories percolating up, aside from the Southeast Asia fallout from the potential economic slowdown, etc. Lebanon careening into a default, getting some help from the IMF to avoid defaulting on a $1.2 billion euro bond. And then Argentina, meanwhile, having a potentially deep debt restructuring. This coming out of the economy minister, Martin Guzman, today. Joining us now to sort of distill the sort of big news in emerging markets lands, aside from Southeast Asia, is Damian Sassower, Chief Emerging Market Strategist for Bloomberg Intelligence. Damian, I want to start with Lebanon, because this has not been on my radar screen in any way, shape, or form. I have not been tracking Lebanon.
I'm shocked.
But it goes to the heart of this issue that some of these more speculative, trouble-ridden countries have been borrowing an incredible amount of money in recent years on the heels of all the interest in emerging markets. And not surprisingly, they occasionally have trouble paying it back, even in this very low interest rate environment. What's the deal with Lebanon right now?
Well, let's begin with Lebanon. I mean, the reality is Lebanon, unlike Argentina, has never defaulted on its debt before. So that's the first thing. And Lebanon, just in terms of par value of debt, we're really only talking about $18 billion worth of debt, right? Okay, fine. That's in par value. Now that par value is significantly less today because the market value of those bonds has plummeted. But really, it all started back. I mean, well, it's been ongoing. But about 3 months ago, we had we had protests on the ground, resulted in a change in government, and now finally they've got a new PM there. And what they're trying to do is re-engage with the IMF, with the World Bank, specifically with the U.S., to try and restructure that $18 billion of par value in debt. Now, Lebanon still is, in terms of market value, the 9th largest EM high-yield sovereign dollar debt issuer. So it's still significant within the grand scheme of things, and it's significantly impacted, a lot of the relative valuations that we like to use to determine whether or not EM high-yield is rich or cheap relative to its peers. So just in terms of where we are now, Lebanon must repay $6 billion of debt this year. It's first, I think it's got $1.2 billion maturing next month. So, the clock is ticking there. I was not even aware Lebanon was an emerging market, an investable market. So I joined Lisa there. But I'm just looking at the chart here for the bonds, and just obviously, they were stable up until just recently. Yeah, I mean, and the interesting thing about Lebanon is it's not like they've got these huge benchmark issues. I mean, it's been issuing bonds. I mean, there's a lot of different bonds. Unlike, most issuers where it's, a bunch of core benchmark issues, there's like little sporadic, smaller issues that really aren't, benchmark eligible and all this kind of other stuff going on. But look, I mean, the reality is the new parliament speaker, Berry, basically brought in the former education minister to run the government. And look, his plan is to basically get remittances back online, because that country revolves on, remittances and foreign inflows. And if they're, and they basically have fallen out of bed. So that's what's really fundamentally impacting the economy there.
Is this an idiosyncratic story such as the one that we're seeing in Argentina, or does this sort of tell a larger story, not necessarily about, issues in a government that's going to cause a fiscal crisis like what we're seeing in Lebanon, but in terms of issuance by countries that previously don't have much of a track record having suddenly trouble paying back their debt?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's completely idiosyncratic. I mean, very, very different than Argentina. Very, very unique, quite frankly, relative to a lot of previous distressed EM sovereign issuers. I mean, but just kind of, shifting to Argentina. Argentina, we just had the economic minister, Martin Guzman, speaking to Congress yesterday and finally providing a little bit of insight as to what they're thinking, the new administration under Alberto Fernandez, with regard to the $323 billion of total debt at risk, of which $44 billion is owed to the IMF. So, Argentina owes about $40 billion in debt and principal and coupon this year, and payments are going to peak in March at something on the order of $6 billion, I think $5.7 billion in debt. So, there's some real issues there, and there's some real losses that have already been incurred. I mean, if you just look at, Franklin Templeton, Hassenstab got hit last year, Ashmore, Yanden got hit last year. I mean, Fidelity and BlackRock are two of the largest holders of Argentine debt. What's interesting, though, if you just look back a few weeks, Buenos Aires, which is the largest province in Argentina, I think it accounts for 40% of the population, they themselves have issued a significant amount of dollar bonds. And what's interesting there is, they were holding out, that province is now run by Axel Kicillof, who was responsible for private. We're
going to test everyone on this later.
Yeah, for owning YPF and all this stuff. Anyway, so the reality is,
his highlighted sheet. He's going back to the highlighted sheet.
I have to kind of go back and forth, but what he said was the Argentine bonds that are denominated under U.S. law are going to be treated like local law, which is a very big deal for we foreign creditors. And he provided 3 scenarios for debt restructuring, which admittedly look a little bit short-sighted. So, I think it's going to get worse for Argentina. I mean, certainly the Century bond has come off pretty significantly after rallying on the positive news after Buenos Aires made that payment a few weeks ago. And so, that's really, look, Argentina is going to have GDP decline for the 3rd year in a row. Inflation's running at 50%. Unemployment is at, very high. A lot of the population is in poverty, so it's a real problem there.
So I know just recently a mission from the International Monetary Fund did arrive in Buenos Aires.
Yes.
What would be a success? What would make their trip a success?
Well, they're attempting to really rework that $56 billion, in IMF loans. And I think what it really comes down to, for me, the big question is Argentina going to roll over this IMF debt into a new version of the same deal, which I guess you can call a standby agreement with the IMF, or are they going to try to do a longer-term program which is tied to structural reforms with the IMF, which, is called an extended fund facility. But, there's a very big difference between the two. And, wherever this path goes is going to be very, very important for foreign creditors and for the nation, quite frankly.
I just want to reiterate that heading into 2020, people were saying long EM, and these two stories are idiosyncratic. So supposedly is the coronavirus and the potential impact on Southeast Asian countries. But just real quickly in 30 seconds, do you have a sense right now that people are starting to shift their views on emerging market credit, in particular local currency denominated debt?
So, just to be very clear, if you take out Argentina and Lebanon and obviously Venezuela from the emerging market dollar debt universe, no, just those 3 distressed, the duration adjusted yields are really nothing to speak of. So, all this talk about moving down in quality and EM sovereign debt really doesn't hold much weight because your duration adjusted yield is like that of U.S. asset backs, which a lot of people are much more comfortable with at these levels. So, that to me is the real thing. It's like, what are you going to buy if you're going into high yield? You're going to buy Nigeria, you're going to buy Dominican Republic. What are you going to, where are you going to go? You're not just.
I was going to buy Lebanon.
Right, you're not getting paid as much as you once were, and I think that's the real issue for EM investors going forward.
Paul, you just keep harping on those Lebanon bonds. You're like, it's going to make me retire early.
Damien Sassow, our Chief Emerging Markets Credit Strategist, joining us here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studios. He's in Bloomberg Intelligence. We love having him on, talking all kinds of emerging market. That, as Lisa mentioned, coming to 2020, that was one of the trades we heard from strategists. Take a look at emerging markets. It's been a rough start. This is Bloomberg.
Hey, have you heard? The Mayor of London has launched his latest van scrappage scheme to help tackle London's toxic air. Small businesses or sole traders like me with a polluting van could now get £7,000, which you could use to trade up to a Euro 6 vehicle. And you could get an extra £2,500 towards running costs if you go electric. The scheme is now even easier to qualify for, and it's open to any businesses with up to 50 employees, like mine. So, I'm going to search TfL Scrappage to see if I'm eligible and apply. You should do the same. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
For up to 50% off selected floors and beds, and up to an additional £250 off your total flooring order. Carpet Right for life. Terms and conditions apply.
Vodafone 5G will have the power to change your world. From driverless cars to virtual reality and real-time gaming. That's why we're rolling out 5G across the UK. Discover Vodafone 5G on the UK's best mobile data network. The future's exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
NPerf testing awarded Vodafone Best 2019 Mobile Internet Performance based on 35,664 tests on the NPerf app in the UK. Coverage may vary. Visit vodafone.co.uk.
Suffering from house embarrassment? At Wix, there's buy one, get one half price on all interior paint, including Dulux. Ends Monday. Terms apply.
You could find a fiver, a tenner, a 20, or even a crisp 50 inside the Sun on Sunday. That's right, cash! Yes, real banknotes inside the paper. We're giving away a wallet-busting amount of cash this weekend only in the Sun on Sunday. It pays to read The Sun. T's and C's apply.
At Ring, we've reinvented the doorbell. So no matter where you are or what time of day, you can watch over your home and the things you care about. Ring Video Doorbell streams HD video and two-way talk straight to your phone, so you can speak to whoever's at your door from anywhere.
Delivery.
Oh, great. Could you leave it with my neighbour, please?
Sure, no problem.
And it's so simple, you can install it yourself in minutes. See, hear and speak to whoever's at your door from wherever you are with Ring Video Doorbell. Available at ring.com and selected retailers.
Do you do the same thing every weekend? You know, meet up with the same friends for brunch, browse around the same shops, eat the same Saturday night takeaway. Mine's a lamb balti with mushroom pilau rice. Snuggle up next to the same person and watch the same brain-numbing reality TV. Then maybe it's time to switch it up. Starting with the all-new Vauxhall Corsa, with its bold styling and up to 70 miles per gallon. To switch it up, visit your local Vauxhall dealership or search New Corsa. Official WLTP test figures for comparison purposes only. Real-world figures may vary.
Central capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
Are we on the brink of a more serious downturn?
I've always thought of the bond market as a little bit of a safe haven.
Banks are going to have to start paying their depositors more.
Are we still in that mode where we're buying the dips?
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
Cash, if you're looking at treasury bills, provides a higher return than stocks and bonds here in the U.S.
If your consumer is a woman, you're more likely to be a growth company.
Longer-term interest rates can go down, even with short-term interest rates still going up a little bit.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Coming up, Tesla taking advantage of the incredible surge in share price to raise more money in the stock market. We'll take a look at the implications and how resilient, frankly, shares have been in the wake of this filing. Plus, we're going to speak with Harley Finkelstein, Chief Operating Officer at Shopify. Right now, though, we are going to get the word on the street from our own Greg Jarrett. Greg.
Lisa, this flash is sponsored by New Jersey Institute of Technology, whose new school for applied engineering and technology is meeting the increased demand for advanced manufacturing skills. More at njit.edu. The S&P is down as the jump in infections undercut optimism. The spread of the virus was slowing tech, and healthcare shares lead the benchmark lower. Investors are seeking refuge in utilities and real estate. Jonathan Gray, Blackstone president and COO, tells Bloomberg there are indeed spaces for investors during these times of disruption.
There are winners and losers. So online commerce is growing rapidly. We've made a huge push into last mile logistics. There's a content revolution that's happening. There's a migration to the cloud that's happening in terms of software, and we've bought a number of businesses that way. So I think in an environment like this, you've got to identify some themes you believe in and really go all in, and that's been helpful for us across our business.
The International Energy Agency says the global oil demand will drop this quarter for the first time in over a decade. They're blaming the coronavirus and its effect on China's economy. We check the numbers every 15 minutes, right? Okay, on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500 is down just 0.1% now. It's caught a way back, down 4. Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 0.3%, down 98, and the Nasdaq is down 0.1%, down 9. The 10-year's up 5/30 seconds, the yield 1.61%. West Texas Intermediate crude is off earlier highs, but it's still up 0.4% at 51.38 a barrel, with COMEX gold up 0.4% at 15.7760 an ounce. The dollar yen 109.83. The euro is $1.850, and the British pound $1.30. 53. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Bloomberg Markets continues now with Paul and Lisa.
Greg, Jared, thank you so much. As Greg was just reporting, markets are in the red, but they are certainly off their lows. Let's see what's happening in the world of small and mid-cap stocks. We welcome our good friend Dave Wilson, Bloomberg Stock Editor. Dave, what are you looking at?
Looking at the Russell 2000 trying to make back the last of its early losses. It's basically little changed at the moment. And the S&P 500 is down 0.1%. So smaller companies holding up a touch better than larger ones at the moment. That said, one of the Russell's drops belongs to Marchex, whose ticker is MCHX. The online advertising company has fallen 23.5%. Marchex's first quarter revenue forecast was lower than the analyst average estimate in the Bloomberg survey. And XBiotech, ticker XBIT, is also down about 23.5%. The drug developer is lower after the deadline passed for a buyback offer. XBiotech will repurchase about 14 million shares for $30 each. And to put that in context, the stock's trading at $16.65 at the moment. So they're paying a whole lot more than the market price. SunPower, ticker SPWR, has slipped 16%. The solar panel maker expects its gross profit margin this quarter to be lower than projections. Now, the Russell's biggest name belongs to FTS International, ticker FTSI. The oil services company has climbed more than 51%. That said, it's trading at about 75 cents a share. FTS had a narrower fourth quarter loss and higher revenue than analysts expected. And Kelly Services, ticker KELYA, has risen about 14.5%. The staffing company's fourth quarter profit beat estimates.
Dave Wilson, Bloomberg Stocks Editor, thank you so much for that rundown. Tesla really in the front and focus today with shares up 1.6%. This is amazing because ahead of the open, we saw shares down as much as 7.2%. And this comes after a filing showing that they planned a $2 billion offering of common stock, taking advantage of the rally in the share price that we've seen that's been absolutely astronomical. I'm trying to understand, A, why people don't seem to care that they're going to be diluted very, very marginally, but typically this is something that matters. And B, why then Tesla didn't raise more? Kevin Tynan joining us here in our Interactive Broker Studios. Kevin Tynan, Senior Autos Analyst for Bloomberg Intelligence. Kevin, let's just first talk about the response. Why are shares up today?
Well, because I think the idea of adding capital to the balance sheet wasn't an overhang, right? I think that the investors believe that they are, he said this in the middle of 2018, they're going to be profitable from here forward. They're going to fund themselves from here forward. So I think that removed the bear case or that bear argument at that time. So needing a little bit of capital here, it's not that big a deal to sort of reverse, especially when you think of the circumstances, right? It's a no-brainer considering the way the stock is run and the amount of, it's absolutely the right thing to do. To your point, I would say, why not do even more than that? But a lot of the way this is managed, this company is managed, is about that perception, right? Just the idea of burning short sellers, right, is just something you don't really see from most CEOs, right? You run the business the right way, profitably, growth, and that takes care of itself. To actively sort of target that group is just unorthodox, and I think that's a big part of it is that perception, that raising capital shows a sign of weakness, that we can't fund ourselves, when in fact it's just part of the process, and when it makes sense to do so, you do it.
So the company also announced that they're going to spend about $3.5 billion in CapEx this year. Give us this, is that enough for some of the plans they've announced?
It is because of he loves leverage, and really in this environment, who doesn't? Right. So a lot of that fixed investment will come from borrowing. Like, so even the Shanghai factory was money taken down from the Chinese government, and same thing probably with Berlin. So that CapEx number that they put out there probably does not include anything they would borrow to build those factories or to expand out and get to some level of scale in China, whether that's distribution infrastructure, sales infrastructure, all that stuff will come out of that CapEx number, but the buildings themselves will come from the borrowing.
Elon Musk has said that they were not going to be raising more capital this year, so this is an about face for him. Also, Tesla has been cutting back its expenditures over the past few years in response to criticism about burning through cash, and they reported an actual net profit, which is one of the reasons why shares rallied so much. Given that, and given that they seem to be doubling down on the spending and not necessarily the cash generation, why are investors so sanguine about this move?
Well, I think also, too, keep in mind the projects that he's teased, right? So there's Roadster 2.0, there's semi-truck, there's Cybertruck, there's Model Y coming, there's all these grand plans. There's robo-taxi fleet, 1 million units in 2020. So investors, the reaction will be like, he's funding the growth, right? There's enough things to do. There's factories to build. There's products to put out there that this is what you have to do. You need capital to do it, and that's what he's doing.
Real quick, what's the demand for electric vehicles? Do we have a sense?
Boy, it's in the 1% range in 2019. So
what do the bulls think it will be?
Well, if you ask the Uber bulls, it's going to be that everybody who owns a car will have to have an electric vehicle. Plus, it's not only a vehicle, right? It's your smartphone. It's everything. So Tesla, as a technology company, can be all things. Everybody who needs a car and a phone is their addressable market.
Kevin Tynan, Senior Autos Analyst, Bloomberg Intelligence, joining us here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio. Tesla stock up just about 1.5% here, but that back on the news of a maybe $2.3 billion stock offering and the associated dilution and supply into the marketplace. Just extraordinary that the stock's trading up. But as Kevin was mentioning, there is a lot of capital demand for this company.
And there's a cult of belief behind Elon Musk. And I think there are other companies that if they suddenly decided to invest money in some questionable project, people wouldn't rally behind them. Elon Musk is a different case.
It's a different case. It is a cult stock for many. Right now, let's head down to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. to Nancy Lyons for world and national headlines. Nancy.
Thanks, Paul. President Trump's pick for the Federal Reserve Board of Governors has been coming under fire today during a Senate Banking Committee hearing. Judy Shelton has publicly supported the president's policies and was asked about her allegiance.
Congress has granted tremendous powers to the Federal Reserve, and citizens have to be assured that monetary authorities will be relying on their own best judgment and their own analytical capabilities in making their decisions, not subject to political pressure.
Some lawmakers say they remain concerned, though, about Shelton's writings, including those suggesting that the Fed should respond to other countries' attempts to devalue their currencies by pursuing a similar path in the U.S. European Union health ministers are moving to boost preparations and organize a coordinated response to prevent the coronavirus that emerged in China from further spreading across Europe. At an emergency meeting in Brussels, EU officials said they need to plan more to avoid any possible shortages of medicine or protective equipment. Dr. Jennifer Rohn is a microbiologist with UCL in London. She tells Bloomberg China should probably not be on anyone's travel itinerary.
Nobody knows what's going on, probably not even the Chinese. We can't really necessarily blame them for this. It's out of control in Hubei province. And I think until we have any idea of how contagious this is and how well their lockdown has worked, it probably is quite dangerous to travel there.
According to Chinese health officials, the outbreak has infected at least 53,000 people worldwide and killed over 1,300. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Nancy Lyons.
Our relationship with Asia is simple. Find the most experienced journalists.
These countries will need each other more and more in the future.
Let them gather the best data and experts.
Let's get to Singapore now and our guest.
Then bring everything they find straight to you.
Let's talk about where you are. There's quite a lot of headwinds there too.
Actually, it's not simple. It's just better. Bloomberg Daybreak Asia, tonight at 6 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
Jelly. Jelly adjective. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt US Kids, and the Ad Council.
In-depth.
EasyJet fly to a wide range of ski destinations from London. So whether you want to go all out on a classic Alps experience or fancy something a little more low-key, it's smoother than ever, and you'll be there, well, you'll be there before you know it. Book now at easyjet.com.
Tomorrow is Valentine's Day, so head to your local Asda in London. We've got bouquets from £5. Gifts they'll adore at prices you'll love. Don't compromise. Asda. Save money, live better. Selected stores subject to availability. Available from 12th of February.
At the Bank of Santander, they've created Stan, a smart bot that can predict the future of remortgaging.
All right, Stan, will my mortgage rate go up?
1955 was the last time Newcastle won the cup.
No, and try not to mumble.
Playing, let's get ready to rumble.
Meanwhile, at Santander, they can't predict your future, but they'll help secure it with great mortgage rates fixed for up to 10 years. See what's possible at Santander.
Early repayment charges apply. Lending subject to status and criteria. Your home may be repossessed if you do not keep up repayments on your mortgage.
Finding your perfect new home can be tough. So if you keep missing out,
It's time to search out.
there are thousands of new properties to buy or rent every month at onthemarket.com. 24 hours or more before they're on Rightmove or Zoopla. See them first. Set up a property alert today.
Search onthemarket.com to find your perfect home.
If you're in the market, search onthemarket.com. See onthemarket.com/new and exclusive. Agents specify exclusivity.
For gentlemen who value the quality of an exquisitely made shoe, Jones Bootmaker Master Shoemakers introduce the world exclusive collection by Loke. Experience the comfort of the cushioned leather footbed and the sustainable, repairable Goodyear welted sole. The world exclusive comfort collection by Jones Bootmaker and Loke, handmade in Britain. Available at Bow Lane, Broad Street, Fenchurch Street, German Street, Canary Wharf and stores nationwide. Or order online at jonesbootmaker.com.
This is our story. The Birds of Prey.
Yeah. Roman is building an army. He's after all of us. We gotta clean the city from the inside out.
Critics are saying Margot Robbie is brilliant as Harley Quinn.
Hi, boys.
A fantastic assault on the senses. An irresistible riot of popcorn fun. Brilliantly acted and very funny. 4 stars. Birds of Prey. In cinemas now. Certificate 15.
Suffering from house harassment? At Wix, there's buy one, get one half price on all interior paint, including Dulux. Ends Monday. Terms apply.
You could find a fiver, a tenner, a 20, or even a crisp 50 inside the Sun on Sunday. That's right, cash! Yes, real banknotes inside the paper. We're giving away a wallet-busting amount of cash this weekend only in the Sun on Sunday. It pays to read The Sun. T's and C's apply.
Oh my days, it's storming the charts at 169. And last over the line, number 169.
You're 169 in line to the throne.
The number 169 never screamed going places until now. Get the Toyota Aygo X-Play for only £169 deposit, then £169 a month with 0% APR representative. Just go. Aygo.
0% APR representative on new sales of Aygo X-Play over 48 months. £169 per month. Customer deposit of £169
£3,169 when proposed and approved via Access Toyota by 31st of March 2020. £3,311.25p optional final payment. Subject to status to over 18s. Indemnities may be required. Conditions apply. Toyota Financial Services.
It's headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
U.S. stocks are well off earlier losses, but still in the red after the World Health Organization said a spike in coronavirus diagnoses does not necessarily reflect a sudden surge in new infections. Treasuries trimmed their gains, and West Texas Intermediate is still a bit in the green. We look at those numbers every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500 is down 0.2%, down 5. The Dow's down 0.4%, down 114. And the Nasdaq's down 0.2%, down 15. 10-year is up 430 seconds with a yield of 1.61%. West Texas Intermediate is up 0.5% at 51.42 a barrel. COMEX Gold is up 0.5% at 15.7930 an ounce. The dollar yen 109.79. The euro's $1.852. The British pound $1.3051. Roku reports fourth quarter results after the close today. Analysts are hoping some high-profile entrants into the streaming video space will help the stock. That includes Disney Plus, with nearly 30 million subscribers. Right now, Roku is up 0.4%. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Craig Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
So, Shopify, I've got a stock for you, Shopify, Lisa. The stock is up 215% over the last year. These are the good folks that help merchants set up and manage their online stores. Stock has done phenomenally well. Just had some great earnings out in the last couple of days. Harley Finkelstein, Chief Operating Officer of Shopify, joins us here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio. Harley, thanks so much for being with us. Usually we chat with you on the phone, so it's good to have you in studio.
Great to be here.
What is driving the growth of Shopify? I mean, when people think online, they think retail, they just think Amazon putting retail out of business. But there are a lot of retailers using your technology that are kind of getting it done, right?
Yeah, there's a million merchants, a million stores now on Shopify, and they sold $61 billion in 2019. That's up about 49% from the previous year. Our revenue for 2019 was approximately $1.5 billion. That's up 47%. So certainly, I think people are beginning to understand what Shopify is, and what we are is we're the world's first retail operating system, and we have stores that are starting on Shopify getting really big. That's the Allbirds, that's the Bombas Socks of the world, that's the Gymsharks of the world. They're becoming category leaders. But also, we also have big brands. I mentioned KitchenAid and PepsiCo and P&G that are also moving over to us.
So they use your guys' platform as opposed to building it out of themselves? Is that kind of the way you think about it?
Yes, some of them built these homegrown stores and decided they don't want to run massive engineering teams. In other cases, they're migrating over from the large enterprise offerings.
So if you look at a chart of your stock, since the end of 2018, it's just gone stratospheric, right? I mean, it's just absolutely rocketed. And I'm trying to understand how you maintain this sort of momentum at a time when there is a lot of competition and at a time when there still are a lot of questions about the economy.
Yeah, so a couple things. First of all, I think when we first went public, which was 2015, Shopify was really an e-commerce provider for merchants and entrepreneurs and small businesses in the English-speaking world. Since then, we've expanded well beyond e-commerce. We now power physical retail across. If you walk in any Allbirds store, you'll see Shopify powering the physical locations. And we do that across thousands of brick and mortar stores. We have a capital business. We've given them more than $800 million in cash advances. We have a payments business. We're launching a fulfillments business now. And we've also expanded beyond just our core geographies. In fact, we've grown our the amount of merchants on our platform outside English-speaking countries from 24% last year to 29% this past quarter. And so we're seeing a larger TAM, and we're doing more for our merchants, which is why I sort of refer to us as this retail operating system, not just an e-commerce provider anymore.
So, as an e-commerce provider or expanded larger, you guys did not come out of Silicon Valley, did you? You guys are in Ottawa.
We are, absolutely.
Talk to us about the startup community, the startup vibe in Canada. Is Ottawa the place to do it, or is it just entrepreneurs kind of all over?
Yeah, actually, I think startups and entrepreneurship and technology has become geographically agnostic. Yep. I actually think it's an advantage to be outside of Silicon Valley. I have a lot of peers that run companies like ours in the Valley, and they tell me that the average tenure of employees there is super short, like 18 months. We incredible talent coming out of Canada. We see incredible loyalty. And I think there's something to be said about being the best place to work in any single geography. And I think Shopify is the best place to work in Canada and one of them around the world.
What about competition? I imagine that Amazon would love to get a piece of what you're doing.
Yeah. So we don't compete with Amazon. Our million merchants do. And I think what Amazon is doing is they're trying to build an empire. And what we're doing is we're arming the rebels. And the rebels are winning. So you see companies like Nike moving off Amazon because they want to have a direct relationship with their end consumers. Allbirds, for example, if you try to buy Allbirds on Amazon, you can only find fake Allbirds. And Allbirds has been built on Shopify.
So basically the idea here is rather than go to Amazon, you're trying to give them tools to be able to do it themselves and create a platform. How do you offer them the same kind of visibility that they may get in an Amazon?
Yeah, so certainly if they're going to put their products on a marketplace like Amazon or eBay, they're going to they're going to rent their customers to those brands. We actually created a platform where our merchants, our brands can actually find their own customers and own them, whether it's through social media or you can buy marketing directly from Shopify on things like Google or Facebook or Snapchat or Instagram. And so rather than simply giving them customers or renting them the way Amazon does, and eventually they can take them back, we actually empower these merchants to create their own customer bases and they connect directly with them.
Where are you guys investing in 2020?
Heavily in SFN, Shopify Fulfillment Network. We think that is, if you sort of look at what we've been doing over the last couple of years, we're ticking off all the different challenges that a small business or a big business may have. We think fulfillment is one of those things. People don't want to use third-party logistics companies because either the requirements, the minimums are way too high, or they put everything in the same box with the marketplace's logo on it. What we're doing is we're creating this network of third-party warehouses. We're aggregating them using technology and software. We bought a company in Boston called Six River Systems last year for about $450 million. They're going to provide incredible robotic technology to make all warehouses a lot more effective. And then we're going to democratize the fulfillment network the way we've done with e-commerce.
Just real quick here, I'm wondering, what's the most effective platform for advertising that you found?
It really depends. I think for a lot of these DTC brands, the ones that are new direct-to-consumer mattress companies or companies like that, honestly, social media seems to be the best one. Now, that being said, others are in more of these traditional industries. Their TV is actually working really well for them.
Interesting.
Harley, real quickly, Elon Musk is taking advantage of his surging share price to sell some stock. Are you guys interested in selling stock?
Not at this moment.
Okay.
Harley Finkelstein, thank you so much for being here. Thanks. Harley Finkelstein, Chief Operating Officer of Shopify, based in Ottawa, joining us here in our interactive broker studios. Shopify shares since the end of 2018 up 292%. So you could see how it's just a dramatic climb as they cater to an increasing number of merchants. I love the idea of arming the rebels.
Yes.
And I guess that there's sort of a question of gaining a critical mass. And you are seeing more of the Nikes of the world go direct to consumer and take their products off of Amazon.
See great growth rates out of their digital sales across a lot of the merchants.
Yeah, really trying to move away from that platform. Coming up, we're going to talk more about what to expect from the fallout from the coronavirus. Also speaking about Hyatt, Marriott, and casinos such as MGM and Las Vegas Sands in the wake of some of the shutdown of major metropolitan areas in China. This is Bloomberg.
This is Bloomberg Money Minute. A stunning report from the Chinese province at the center of the coronavirus outbreak. It is reporting that the number of cases soared by 45% to almost 50,000. That's raising questions about the true scale of the crisis, sending stocks lower. Kraft Heinz falling after reporting a decline in fourth quarter sales. It's the latest sign that the maker of Maxwell House coffee and Grey Poupon mustard has a long road ahead. The company has been under pressure to show improvement as it struggles to fend off upstart brands. Internet furniture retailer Wayfair is said to be laying off employees. The email to employees obtained by the Boston Globe speaks of Wayfair's need to, quote, tighten our focus and increase efficiencies. It was not immediately clear how many Wayfair employees were affected. And in honor of Valentine's Day, the average American spends $700 a year on dating, and the cost of a first date, $77. That's according to Loan Marketplace Lending Tree. Courtney Dunhope, Bloomberg Radio.
Hope you enjoyed your meal. And I just want to say, he's lucky to have a brother like you.
Lucky? Caring for my brother is far from easy. But he's a part of me, like my arms and legs, so I'll be his. No time for tired. Nothing can disable this love. He needs me, but I'm the lucky one, even though I need help now and then.
If you're caring for a loved one, visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community. Support for your strength. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers. In-depth.
Hey, have you heard? The Mayor of London has launched his latest van scrappage scheme to help tackle London's toxic air. Small businesses or sole traders like me with a polluting van could now get £7,000, which you could use to trade up to a Euro 6 vehicle. And you could get an extra £2,500 towards running costs if you go electric. The scheme is now even easier to qualify for, and it's open to any businesses with up to 50 employees, like mine. So, I'm going to search TfL Scrappage to see if I'm eligible and apply. You should do the same. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Switch to 5G on Vodafone. Pre-order the new Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra 5G by March 8th and get wireless Galaxy Buds Plus for free. With unlimited 5G data, you can post 108 megapixel photos and download videos impossibly fast. All on the UK's best mobile data network. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
5G subject to coverage in your area. MPerf test awarded Vodafone Best 2019 Mobile Internet Performance. Minimum term applies. See vodafone.co.uk.
This is our story. The Birds of Prey.
Yeah. Roman is building an army. He's after all of us. We gotta clean the city from the inside out.
Critics are saying Margot Robbie is brilliant as Harley Quinn.
Hi, boys.
A fantastic assault on the senses. An irresistible riot of popcorn fun. Brilliantly acted and very funny. 4 stars. Birds of Prey. In cinemas now. Certificate 15.
Suffering from house harassment? At Wix, there's buy one, get one half price on all interior paint, including Dulux. Ends Monday. Terms apply.
Ladies and gentlemen, Maltesers presents If Dating App Chats Were Real Life Chats.
Amber, damn, you hot. Glad we matched.
Me too. You're definitely my type.
I gotta ask, did it hurt?
Oh, I'll see where this is going.
When you fell from heaven, Amber? Yo, Amber, 'cause you're an angel.
Snore. Ditch the apps this Valentine's and swipe yourself some Maltesers.
The Mona Lisa is only 30 inches tall. The world's hottest chili, 1 inch. And Napoleon, taller than a Great Dane, but only by 71 centimetres. Who says small can't make an impact? The Peugeot 108 Allure is now available for just $159 per month, with $159 initial rental. Our small but mighty car that doesn't have to cost you a small fortune. Peugeot Motor Company PLC, a credit broker not a lender, will introduce you to PSA Finance UK Limited. Personal finance lease, 48 months at 159, 18 plus, guarantee may be required. Terms, eligibility and return conditions apply. You will not own the car.
Winter joggers of London, it's chilly. Your legs are caked in mud and your nose is running faster than you. Then, get that heating on. You deserve it. Thanks to Hive Active Heating, you can control your heating wherever you are with a tap of the app, which could save you up to £120 a year by never having to heat an empty home. Buy today and get a free Amazon Echo Dot. Search Hive Heating. Hive services require broadband and Wi-Fi. Terms apply.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Coming up, we're going to chat with Steve Wagner of Experian. We're going to discuss how businesses are impacted by risk and threats of identity fraud. Then we're going to chat with our good friend Tuna Moby of CFRA. He downgraded the major casino and cruise names today due to coronavirus exposure. We'll get the latest from Tuna. But first, let's go to Greg Jarrett of Bloomberg News for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Greg.
Paul came off session lows after the World Health Organization announcement, though it remained lower for the day, the WHO, announced that they had come to some conclusions about the testing of the coronavirus. Earlier, the benchmark had slumped alongside European and Asian gauges after officials in China deployed that revised methodology to diagnose the virus, sending the number of confirmed cases soaring. Rebecca Chesworth, State Street Global Advisors, tells Bloomberg there are some who might see the coronavirus effect on commodity prices as a bit of an opportunity.
And you've got copper and, as you say, oil trading at these low levels. I mean, it's right that they had this initial reaction because China does account for such a large proportion of demand for these materials these days. But there is always someone who is looking to bridge that gap to buy these things. And maybe it's that some of the other areas have overreacted and have bounced back too quickly.
We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day here on Bloomberg Radio. Quite a difference in just the last few seconds. The S&P 500 is now little changed. The Dow is down 0.2%, down 62, and the NASDAQ is little changed, up 1. The 10-year is up 3/30 seconds with a yield of 1.61%. West Texas Intermediate is up 0.3% at 51.32 a barrel. COMEX Gold up 0.4% at 15.7830 an ounce. The dollar yen is at 109.85. The euro $1.0850, and the British pound $1.3051. Southwest Airlines extends the absence of the 737 MAX from its flight schedule to the end of the busy summer travel season in August. Right now, Southwest is down 0.6%. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
On Monday, the Department of Justice announced charges against 4 members of China's People's Liberation Army for the 2017 hack of Equifax. And this was something that exposed millions of Americans and their private data. It raises questions, putting aside this particular case, it raises questions about just how well we are able to detect the attacks that our data is exposed to every single day. Joining us here in studio, Steve Wagner, Global Managing Director of Decision Analytics for Experian. Steve, so glad to have you. I want to start with that. Where are we when it comes to detection, when it comes to these attacks?
Sure. Well, the particular angle that we tend to come at this from in my businesses is really fraud and identity within commercial transactions. So a lot of ways you could answer your question. We're focused on that particular angle. I think when we think about it, and we just released a study that we've done at 6,500 consumers and 650 businesses in 13 countries around the world. And we've been looking at this question of how businesses should sort of shape their understanding. How do they react? What do they do? So the big issue is businesses faced with those kind of security threats instinctively sometimes will just clamp down, right? The best thing for me to do is to not be involved digitally with anybody. Of course, that doesn't really allow you to do business very much. So the business person the business person really has to think through what's the right way to do that, what's the right way to make commerce work. So what our business people are generally thinking about is how do I create an extraordinary digital experience for my consumers? That's what they want to do, right? What we found in this particular study was that 95% of businesses believe that they're actually doing a good job of identifying who's coming to them electronically. 55% of consumers believe that the businesses actually understand who they are, which is obviously a significant mismatch.
So do you think that businesses that think 95% of the businesses think they're doing a good job identifying who their customers are, is that kind of false sense of security there? Do you think that is a really valid number?
Well, I think the number's valid in the study, but what you have to get to in order to understand that mismatch is the way businesses are looking at it today versus the way consumers are looking at it. So the way when you talk to a consumer, what do they care about first and foremost in their digital interactions? They care about security. So actually, when you talk to a consumer, you're a business, you're dealing with them online. Indicia of security make them feel better, make them happier to interact with you. A business, on the other hand, when you rank their priorities, number one in their priority list is creating an experience that is targeted to that individual, right? So in other words, they'll look at it, they'll say, yeah, I understand, I know who Paul is, I've seen him before, that's all I need to know. Now the real question is whether or not the things I say to Paul and what I do with Paul is really on target or not. And the consumer's just saying, hey, look, actually, when you asked me for passwords and you asked me, put me into a credentialed environment, that's what I'm willing to share. So,
but this goes to the heart of, do you know who you're dealing with? Do you know what the incoming attention you're getting really is about? According to the same study, you talked about how fraud continues to increase, with 57% of businesses citing an increase in the past 12 months. And I just wonder how much this is an increase in the ability to detect some of these and how much is an increase in attacks, or is it both?
Yeah, so I think there's an opportunity in the market right now, because I think what we've identified, this mismatch between how consumers feel and where businesses are, businesses also believe that if they really understand who the consumer is, fraud will go down. So it's clear in the study that businesses aren't quite getting it right yet. So what businesses need to do is take more advantage of the data and the analytics that are available within these online digital environments. So right now, I don't think they do that enough. They tend to say, all right, I've gotten passwords for this individual. I know their name. I know I know them. But actually, there's quite a bit more available. And in particular, there are quite a few individual threat modality fraud tools that you can use. And the question is, are these being knitted together into a comprehensive way, or are businesses just employing, I use device ID. I use behavioral biometrics. I use this. When in fact, what you really need to win today is you need a comprehensive capability that incorporates sort of all of the different tools that are available, layers that with analytics, so that you can really construct strong defenses.
Steve Wagner, thanks so much for joining us. Really fascinating, the discussion, as more and more of our time is spent online. You have to balance does the business know me, and are they protecting my data, and all those types of things.
It's such an interesting concept that, there's one thing about having artificial intelligence detecting all of the incoming threats. It's another thing just to know who you're dealing with at any given time, and how do you do that well? And that sort of dual approach to trying to stave off some of the attacks that seem to be increasing for every business that operates in the online world, which is everyone.
Steve Wagner, Global Managing Director, Experian Decision Analytics, based in Orange County, California, but joining us here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio. Right now, let's head down to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. for world and national headlines with Nancy Lyons. Nancy.
Thanks, Paul. Attorney General William Barr is expected to testify before the House Judiciary Committee at the end of March. This is after refusing to do so over the past year. The deal follows concerns over Barr's apparent involvement in reducing the sentencing recommendation for former Trump political operative Roger Stone. In a letter, Democrats on the committee expressed numerous concerns regarding the leadership of the Department of Justice and what they perceive to be the president's improper influence over the department. The top budget official at the White House is offering no apologies, even when lawmakers pressed him on the decision to withhold aid from Ukraine last year. In fact, he didn't even rule out doing it again. Bloomberg's Amy Morris reports from Washington.
Office of Management and Budget Acting Director Russ Vought told lawmakers they intend to maintain flexibility when it comes to spending. He says they're managing the money with plans to ensure it's not wasted. Democrats say the administration must obligate legally appropriated funds, even if the executive branch thinks they're a waste. But Vought says when it comes to appropriations, they'll look at the authorization law and figure out how much flexibility the White House has with the funds. In Washington, I'm Amy Morris, Bloomberg Radio.
Female members of the U.S. House are wearing purple today as the chamber votes on a resolution to remove a 1982 deadline that was placed on the ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment. Virginia recently became the 38th state to approve the amendment, pushing the legislation over the needed threshold for approval. The House is expected to approve removal of the deadline, the Senate not expected to follow suit. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Nancy Lyons.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion, or your race, or because you have children, or a disability.
It's so wrong. Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit HUD.gov/fairhousing. That's HUD.gov/fairhousing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
Hey, have you heard? The Mayor of London has launched his latest van scrappage scheme to help tackle London's toxic air. Small businesses or sole traders like me with a polluting van could now get £7,000, which you could use to trade up to a Euro 6 vehicle. And you could get an extra £2,500 towards running costs if you go electric. The scheme is now even easier to qualify for, and it's open to any businesses with up to 50 employees, like mine. So, I'm going to search TfL Scrappage to see if I'm eligible and apply. You should do the same. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Rita's Rowdy Enchiladas.
Every time the kids are together, it's always the same. Never a moment's peace. Didn't take me long to work out the trick, though. Shredded chicken and black bean enchiladas with lime, oregano, and my little secret. A bit of smoke and spice with chipotle paste. Hear that? Never failed yet.
Make Rita's Rowdy Enchiladas tonight with Tesco British Chicken. Food Love Stories, brought to you by Tesco.
Winter joggers of London, it's chilly. Your legs are caked in mud and your nose is running faster than you. Then, get that heating on. You deserve it. Thanks to Hive Active Heating, you can control your heating wherever you are with a tap of the app, which could save you up to £120 a year by never having to heat an empty home. Buy today and get a free Amazon Echo Dot. Search Hive Heating. Hive services require broadband and Wi-Fi. Terms apply.
Had the same job for the last 15 years? Working with the same people, in the same office, drinking tea from the same comedy mug, eating the same crayfish and rocket sandwich every lunchtime, using the same business jargon, and climbing the same greasy pole. What does that even mean? Then maybe it's time to switch it up, starting with the all-new Vauxhall Corsa. With its bold styling and up to 70 miles per gallon. To switch it up, visit your local Vauxhall dealership or search New Corsa. Official WLTP test figures for comparison purposes only. Real-world figures may vary.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Right now, instead of hearing this, you could be listening to the music that keeps you moving with TuneIn Premium. Find today's biggest songs and all of your favorites commercial-free. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Major League Baseball is back. Are you ready to unlock the 2020 season with TuneIn Premium?
And this one is gone! It hits the foul pole!
Be there from day one with every single game of spring training, rivalry games, split squads, Cactus League, Grapefruit League. TuneIn Premium has it all. Then, when the pitch count starts for real, experience live and on-demand access to every game, everywhere you go, from opening day to the World Series. Don't miss out on the action. Search Premium to upgrade today.
The Iowa caucuses were an epic fail, a fiasco, and
an invitation for suspicion.
No matter what the results are now, they're going to be questioned in terms of their authenticity.
How we got this system in the first place and other tales from primary land on this week's On the Media from WNYC. Listen to the On the Media podcast from WNYC Studios on TuneIn today.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
Lines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Stocks are now little changed after spending most of the session down after China changed the way it diagnosed coronavirus cases and the numbers skyrocketed. Then the mood changed after the World Health Organization said the spike in diagnoses does not necessarily reflect a sudden surge in new infections. We check the numbers every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500's little change, down 2. The Dow's down 0.3%, down 80, and the Nasdaq's little change, down 1. The 10-year is up 4/32 with a yield of 1.61%. West Texas Intermediate crude oil is up 0.5% at $51.40 a barrel, with COMEX gold up 0.5% at $15.7950 an ounce. The dollar yen 109.82, the euro $1.0849, and the British pound $1.3056. Sources say that Deutsche Telekom wants to renegotiate the terms of a sale of Sprint to U.S. wireless unit T-Mobile. The anonymous sources went on to say the German carrier, the majority owner of T-Mobile, is seeking a lower price because Sprint shares have been trading below the level when the deal was proposed in 2018. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Well, the global travel industry is really at the forefront of feeling the brunt of the coronavirus. I'm thinking cruise ships, hotels, casinos, really seeing business impacted significantly in the shares of those companies, reflecting it as well. Our next guest has a equally cautious view of those sectors. Tuna Amobi, he's a director and industry research analyst at CFRA Research. He joins us on the phone. Tuna, thanks so much for joining us again. I know you've become more cautious, downgraded a bunch of stocks. Tell us how you see kind of some of these casino companies, cruise lines, and the like.
Good morning, Paul, my friend, and thanks for having me. So over the past 2 weeks or so, we have actually taken a more dire assessment of the potential impact of the coronavirus on, the overall tourism. And, the cruise ships, the online travel companies, the casinos, the one constant theme has emerged is that, while it's very difficult to quantify the overall impact, and of course no one really knows the duration or how long it's going to last, but we think that it's starting to take a toll right now. And you just heard about, the higher number of death tolls, as well as more cases being diagnosed. So my sense is, the market may still be underestimating the potential impact of this. If you remember, I think it seems to be some comfort level that if you compare to the SARS or the Ebola, and while those cases were ultimately, resolved, limiting its impact, what worries us here is really the speed and severity of the new cases that are being diagnosed and the death toll, which kind of leads us to believe that this is going to continue to be an overhang as the year goes on for quite some time.
Tuna, it's so interesting to hear you speak because we speak with economists and investors who say they're expecting some sort of V-shaped recovery in the economy of China and beyond. And I'm wondering, as you look at MGM basically withdrawing their entire outlook for the year, citing the disruption from the coronavirus, the fact that they get 27% of their business from Macau and are losing an estimated more than $1 million a day based on the current shutdown that we're seeing. How can we even be so sure that a place like MGM could compensate for this later on?
We can be. That's the short answer. We actually are taking a more negative view of MGM, downgrading to a sell ahead of their earnings, report last night. I think that just confirmed to us that, no one really has a handle of this. So they talk about the expense burn rate about $1.5 million on a daily basis, even while the casinos have been shut down, mostly for payroll. And that was also a thing that we heard from Wynn Resorts in Las Vegas. So I think you're really starting to see, the casinos starting to feel the brunt of this. And remember, this is an industry that was already massively impacted by the Hong Kong protests. So this latest coronavirus issue just seems to be adding salt to injury, and really no one has a handle on when this is going to dissipate. Now, one more thing I'd add is that even when the situation is resolved, typically, from a historical perspective, we usually see several months before things can get any semblance of normalization, which is really why we think this 2020, at least the first half, certainly is going to need much more caution.
Tuna, this is definitely specific to the casino industry, the travel industries. Is there, though, a broader brush that we could paint in terms of the potential longer-term impact, given your experience examining the corporate balance sheets of these companies as well as the likes of Amazon and Netflix?
Well, the one thing that I'd say that China overall, most of these companies, you talk about Amazon and Netflix, have a relatively limited direct exposure in China, partly due to the regulatory environment there. But I think what I see is some type of tangential fallout from this geopolitical situation. A lot of these companies, even when they are not directly operating in China, have some type of strategic partnership. That's true certainly for online travel companies, and of course casinos have a huge stake in there. So every industry is different. China itself has been a major driver of global tourism, outbound travel. And I think what's important to remember is that while most of the issues right now appear to be limited to China, they could be, in fact, a broader geopolitical impact across even the U.S. and other, markets like Europe. Of course, that depends on how fast those cases travel. But overall, while the overall impact on GDP growth is relatively muted at this point, I think you could actually see that situation get out of control pretty fast.
So, Tuna, just on the cruise lines here, I know when you talk to a lot of people about, why don't you go on a cruise, one of the concerns is just being, stuck with so many people in a confined area, and it just seems like, these outbreaks of diseases are perhaps more common there. Do you think there's longer-term risk to kind of just the whole market, total market size for the cruising industry from this?
I think what's interesting is before this coronavirus outbreak, the cruise industry fundamentals were pretty healthy. We were expecting a near record year based on advanced indicators of booking and pricing, onboard spending. All of those indicators seem to be holding up well. Now, it seems like all bets are off. When you kind of hear stories about, the Diamond Princess being quarantined and several other ships unable to find landing ports or destinations, my sense is that there is a certain amount of wariness out there among potential cruise passengers in terms of booking, pending the resolution of this issue. So I think you're starting to see the guidance from cruise companies, at risk is actually why we took a more negative stance on Royal Caribbean, as well as a Norwegian cruise, both of which we downgraded. We also have a sale on Carnival. So this is something that's going to hover over the industry until any more visibility in terms of the potential resolution.
Tuna, just real quick here, 30 seconds. Do you buy this argument that Netflix is getting a huge boost from this because people are sitting home and doing Netflix and chill rather than going out, potentially getting coronavirus?
Lisa, that's something we've heard before, but I'd say it's a little bit far-fetched at this point. It's really hard to kind of connect those dots. That being said, I can understand why, maybe in isolated cases that could be true, but hard to generalize here.
Tuna Amobi, thank you so much. Tuna Amobi, Director and Industry Analyst at CFRA Research, joining us on the phone from New Jersey. I love that. I read a bunch of stories about how Netflix, we talk about the negative impact of the coronavirus, but there are companies benefiting because people are staying home and they got to do something, so they might as well watch movies.
Yeah, exactly. And stay home and chill? Is that what you said? Netflix and chill?
Netflix and chill. Well,
okay.
that's something else. But I will say that definitely he's just knocking that down. And I would say there is a real question about any potential positive business-wise. I'm Lisa Abramowitz with Paul Sweeney. Coming up, we're going to dig into the latest from Washington, D.C. with Bloomberg's Balance of Power with David Weston from New York. This is Bloomberg.
In addition to Bloomberg Radio, you can catch the latest news and biggest newsmakers on Bloomberg Television. Look for us on DirecTV Channel 353 or check your local listings. Sometimes the...
Switch to 5G on Vodafone. Pre-order the new Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra 5G by March 8th and get wireless Galaxy Buds Plus for free. With unlimited 5G data, you can post 108 megapixel photos and download videos impossibly fast. All on the UK's best mobile data network. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
5G subject to coverage in your area. MPerf test awarded Vodafone Best 2019 Mobile Internet Performance. Minimum term applies. See vodafone.co.uk.
This is our story. The Birds of Prey.
Yeah. Roman is building an army. He's after all of us. We gotta clean the city from the inside out.
Critics are saying Margot Robbie is brilliant as Harley Quinn.
Hi, boys.
A fantastic assault on the senses. An irresistible riot of popcorn fun. Woo! Brilliantly acted and very funny. 4 stars. Birds of Prey. In cinemas now. Certificate 15.
It was a Sunday morning when I jumped on the tube.
And decided to pop down to Greenwich via
a large indoor jungle.
And when I got there, I was captivated by a sparkling,
scary dinosaur just standing there right in front of me.
So off we went to Wembley Park
to look at the colourful fish.
Tap into the wonderful world of off-peak London. Travel in zones 2 to 6 for £1.50. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters. £1.50 is an adult off-peak pay-as-you-go fare for a journey not going via Zone 1 on Tube, DLR and most London Overground services. Always touch in and out with the same card or device to pay the right fare.
The Dacia Duster has won what car? Best family SUV less than £20,000 for the 2nd year running. Time to roll out the fanfare. Starting from only $10,995, our prices are pretty modest, just like our celebrations. Visit dacia.co.uk to find out more about our range of award-winning cars. Dacia, you do the maths.
It's already chilly in London, and you know that dodgy boiler is on its last legs. So if the thought of no heating makes you break out in a cold sweat, talk to British Gas. You can spread the cost of a new boiler interest-free over 2 years and get £200 off when you get a quote by the 29th of February or £400 off for existing home care customers. British Gas, here to solve. Search British Gas new boiler. Conditions apply.
World 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters in New York to our TV and radio audiences worldwide, I'm David Weston. Welcome to Balance of Power, where the world of politics meets the world of business. On the brief today, Sophie Cameron in Hong Kong on China's new coronavirus cases, Matt Boesler in New York on Fed nominees facing some difficult Senate questions, and David Merritt in London on Prime Minister Johnson's big cabinet shuffle. So, Sophie, thank you once again for all your continuing coverage over there in Hong Kong. Give us a sense. Overnight, we heard there were a lot more cases than we thought there were. At the same time, WHO said maybe we shouldn't be too concerned about it. Where are we on the number of cases?
Well, there's several ways to parse that data. Given the revision to the methodology, we saw an uptick in the daily count to nearly 15,000. But when you break down those numbers, nearly 13,000 of those are represented by cases that fall under this new category, which include diagnoses by clinical symptoms, which then means those can be put to further testing. And the WHO, in the wake of this revision from China, noted that much of those 13,000 added cases date back days and weeks, and do not represent a sudden surge when it comes to the daily count. But nonetheless, this does mean there's increased worries about how efforts to contain the crisis are going in China and elsewhere. Today, for example, the U.S. confirmed a 15th case. India putting nearly 16,000 people under surveillance, and Japan reporting its first death, bringing the global tally to 3 outside of China, David.
Sophie, of course, all of our concern is first and foremost with the health and safety of the people involved, but we also pay some attention to the economy. Do we have any sense of what ripples this is having through the Chinese economy?
We are seeing some early indicators of impact ahead of the January and February trade figures we're going to get later in March. We saw Chinese car sales take a hit, plunging by the most in 8 years in January. And Alibaba warning of the consequences, a fundamental impact seen on consumers and merchants on the mainland. And we have seen a shakeup when it comes to officials that oversee Hubei, Wuhan, as well as in Hong Kong, amid some of the scrutiny and criticism of how authorities in those regions have approached the crisis. David.
Okay, Sophie, once again, we really appreciate all your great reporting from Hong Kong. That's Sophie Cameron, our colleague over in Hong Kong. And now here in New York, we have Matt Boesler, and he's here to talk about Judy Shelton and the other nominee. There are 2 nominees who are getting very different reactions from the Senate today.
Yeah, that's right. So Chris Waller, the research director of the St. Louis Fed, and Judy Shelton, of course, both Trump's nominees to the Fed board. All of the questioning pretty much focused on Judy Shelton today and a lot of her controversial views. Chris Waller kind of sailed through, didn't even really have to field many questions. And so the interesting thing is we definitely expected Democrats to come out strongly against Shelton in the questioning, and they did that. But 3 Republicans also went after her a little bit on different issues. And so that creates a bit of a wild card for her nomination now, because she only needs 1 Republican in committee to go against her to, halt her nomination. And then, of course, if she does make it out of committee, only 3 Republicans in the broader Senate.
So Judy Shelton has been, I think, quite outspoken, sort of a commentator on Fed policy, effectively something of a gadfly, and that may have attracted President Trump to her as a possible nominee. Is she backing off of those positions now, or is she doubling down?
So she was definitely trying to, I think, have it a little bit both ways in today's hearing. One of the lines of questioning, for example, was about the gold standard, and she was kind of saying that, look, I don't advocate going back to the world of the late 1800s and that system that we had now, but she kind of couched it in language that wasn't necessarily ruling out some sort of role for gold in her ideal monetary system going forward. And so that's kind of the, trap that you fall into for someone like you said, who's been writing a lot about this and has a long paper trail. They're kind of forced to play both sides of some of those things.
At the same time, this is an opportunity for the president to really put his stamp to some extent on the Fed, really have an influence there. I suppose she has to be careful she doesn't go too far over to the Senate side and lose the president.
Yeah, that's right. So again, that's another balancing act. And certainly one of the other things that came up a lot was her comments on sort of international monetary policy relations and how they relate to trade. And obviously trade has been a major initiative of Donald Trump's. He feels very strongly about those things. And that was one of the things that came under criticism from Republican senators today. And so that's kind of one of the things that is leaving her nomination in doubt at the moment.
Okay, thank you so much to Matt Boesler reporting on what's going on with the Fed nominees. And now we're going to go to London and David Merritt, because there's been some big shakeups over there. As I understand it, David, some of that was anticipated. I'm not sure that the Prime Minister intended all the shakeup that he got.
That's right. We were expecting a sort of second-tier reshuffling of his cabinet. No huge names really affected. In the end, we got a big bombshell. The Chancellor of the Exchequer, Sajid Javid, walking out of his job after a face-to-face row with the Prime Minister in Downing Street, essentially over control of the budget that is coming up in a few weeks' time. Bit of a power grab, really, from number 10 Downing Street. Certainly not what Mr. Johnson intended from his reshuffle today. One of the biggest names, arguably the second most powerful person in his government. You have to go back to the 1980s, but for the last time, a Chancellor walked out of his job in this way. So very dramatic. He's not been in the job very long. He hasn't even delivered a budget yet. So we were supposed to be weeks away. Downing Street then briefing this afternoon. They don't know. They cannot confirm whether we will have a budget, in fact, in March. So, Mr. Johnson's economic plans really thrown into disarray this afternoon.
Well, but it's interesting. It may not have been what the Prime Minister Boris Johnson wanted, but he surely must have anticipated this possibility, because as I understand it, they already had forced the Chancellor to get rid of his communications person, and now they came in reportedly and said, your top 5 people are gone. They must have anticipated the possibility that he would say, I'm sorry, I can't live with that, which apparently is what happened. He said, I just can't be Chancellor under those circumstances.
That's absolutely right. But, it's a real sign of Mr. Johnson's strength, though, in fact, that he was able to hold the ground or even threaten something like that to the Chancellor. It would have been unimaginable for his predecessor, Theresa May, who had tried, in fact, to perhaps dislodge the previous Chancellor, Philip Hammond, but he stood his ground. Mr. Javid really saw that he couldn't continue in this role. There's been lots of reports over weeks of tensions between Dominic Cummings, the famous chief advisor to Mr. Johnson, and the Treasury. And, of course, Mr. Javid trying to have perhaps a bit more of a traditionally conservative approach with spending. And this is the big question, of course, in that budget. Mr. Johnson making big spending pledges in the campaign to all these new voters in the north of England, big infrastructure proposals that he wants to push through. Mr. Javid really perhaps blocking some of those. We saw a market reaction to the news today, the pound going up, government bonds falling. Why? Because there's an expectation that with Mr. Javid out the way, Mr. Johnson is going to be able to turn on those spending taps, and we're going to see a fiscally expansive government from here on.
Yeah, so much for austerity. I think that looks like it's gone by the wayside. Thank you so much to David Merritt over in London. And now let's check on how the markets are reacting to today's top stories. Joining us now is Abigail Doolittle. So a little bit risk off last time I checked.
A little bit risk off at this point, but less so than earlier. We're well off of the lows. In fact, the NASDAQ, that tech-heavy index, slightly higher. So investors really looking past these new coronavirus numbers, making the continued assumption that the global economic impact is not going to be too bad. It won't stretch beyond, let's say, a quarter or 2 quarters. It seems to me it's probably a little bit too early to make that assumption, but the fact that we do have stocks just mildly lower at this point, and again, that tech-heavy NASDAQ slightly higher, suggests that they just want stocks to go higher.
And I believe one piece of evidence that would support you is what's going on with commodities, because commodities are coming up. It would tend to confirm what you're saying.
Well, so commodities have really been under pressure this year because China is the world's largest user of natural resources. Today, we have a little bit more of a rally there for commodities, which is interesting. So to your point, yes, it does confirm that idea that investors just want in on risk assets, that search for yield. Interesting, though, we, of course, have Haven bonds also higher. Exactly. So investors can't quite make up their mind. And on the year, bonds really the big winner at this point. Stocks to some degree are as well. Depends on what index, but bonds clearly the big winner. So some investors are hedging against a worst case or a worst case scenario than what we're pricing in right now around the coronavirus tragedy.
It's fascinating. Thank you so much, Abigail, for that great report on the markets. And now we're going to turn to Mark Crumpton for Bloomberg First Word News.
David, a cruise ship that had been stranded at sea for about 2 weeks after being refused entry by 4 countries finally docked today in Cambodia. Thailand, Japan, and Taiwan and the Philippines had all refused to allow the Westerdam to dock over fears it would expose them to the coronavirus. Ship operator Holland America Line says no cases of the virus have been confirmed among its more than 2,200 passengers and crew. Nevada votes next and then South Carolina, but top Democrats vying for their party's presidential nomination are looking ahead to the biggest prize on the primary calendar. Super Tuesday, the slate of contests when more than a dozen states go to the polls, is March 3rd. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders led the popular vote in Iowa and New Hampshire, with former South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg a close second. In the UK, Chancellor of the Exchequer, Sajid Javid, says he had no choice but to resign. Javid quit today after a showdown with Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Bloomberg has learned that Johnson demanded that Javid fire all 5 of his most senior Treasury aides. Javid tells Sky News he was unable to accept conditions for being Chancellor. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa is delivering his State of the Nation address in Cape Town at this hour. Business leaders have been ratcheting up the pressure on Ramaphosa to announce decisive measures to turn around the economy and fix struggling state-owned enterprises. The speech has been billed by South African business leaders as the most important since Nelson Mandela's in 1994, the first after apartheid ended. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. I'm Mark Crumpton. This is Bloomberg. David?
Thanks so much, Mark. Coming up, Bernie Sanders may be the front runner in the Democratic race for president, but just how far in front really is he? We're going to get the latest from Kyle Kondik. He is managing editor of Sabato's Christie Wall. That is next. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and on radio.
Thank you.
Hey, have you heard? The Mayor of London has launched his latest van scrappage scheme to help tackle London's toxic air. Small businesses or sole traders like me with a polluting van could now get £7,000, which you could use to trade up to a Euro 6 vehicle. And you could get an extra £2,500 towards running costs if you go electric. The scheme is now even easier to qualify for, and it's open to any businesses with up to 50 employees, like mine. So, I'm going to search TfL Scrappage to see if I'm eligible and apply. You should do the same. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Let's get this right, sir. You didn't see three men dressed as clowns take off in a van with a Renaissance painting because you were distracted by, and I quote, a sporty red compact SUV with a bold mesh grille, a sculpted bonnet with sweeping roofline on diamond-cut alloys.
And beautiful rear haunches.
So, you saw a Jaguar E-Pace. But what about the clowns?
What clowns?
Jaguar E-Pace, designed to steal attention. Search Jaguar E-Pace.
At the Bank of Santander, they've created Stan, a smart bot that can predict the future of remortgaging.
I'll read Stan. Will my mortgage rate go up?
1955 was the last time Newcastle won the cup.
No, and try not to mumble.
Playing, let's get ready to rumble.
Meanwhile, at Santander, they can't predict your future, but they'll help secure it with great mortgage rates fixed for up to 10 years. See what's possible at Santander.
Early repayment charges apply. Lending subject to status and criteria. Your home may be repossessed if you do not keep up repayments on your mortgage.
For up to 50% off selected floors and beds, and up to an additional £250 off your total flooring order. Carpet Right for life. Terms and conditions apply.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
For gentlemen who value the quality of an exquisitely made shoe, Jones Bootmaker Master Shoemakers introduce the world-exclusive collection by Loke. Experience the comfort of the cushioned leather footbed and the sustainable, repairable Goodyear welted sole. The world-exclusive comfort collection by Jones Bootmaker and Loke, handmade in Britain. Available at Bow Lane, Broad Street, Fenchurch Street, German Street, Canary Wharf and stores nationwide. Or order online at jonesbootmaker.com.
Switch to 5G on Vodafone. Pre-order the new Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra 5G by March 8th and get wireless Galaxy Buds Plus for free. With unlimited 5G data, you can post 108 megapixel photos and download videos impossibly fast. All on the UK's best mobile data network. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
5G subject to coverage in your area. MPerf test awarded Vodafone Best 2019 Mobile Internet Performance. Minimum term applies. See vodafone.co.uk.
At Wix, we'll create your dream kitchen from design to show-off ready and take care of everything. And now, save a third on showroom kitchen units. Book your free design appointment today. Cure your house embarrassment with Wix. For minimum spend, terms and exclusions, see wix.co.uk.
You could find a fiver, a tenner, a 20, or even a crisp 50 inside the Sun on Sunday. That's right, cash! Yes, real banknotes inside the paper. We're giving away a wallet-busting amount of cash this weekend only in the Sun on Sunday. It pays to read The Sun. T's and C's apply.
Why not stay in this Valentine's? Have a romantic night in with a bottle of Co-op Irresistible Prosecco for £8. Co-op, it's what we do. Subject to availability, see participating stores for details. Please drink responsibly.
Good morning, this is your Southern service to London Victoria. Join in our onboard quiz. Here's our next clue. What C sounds like a handheld party food but keeps you dry and protected from the rain? Not canapes, canopies.
At Southern Railway, we're investing over £7 million into making improvements for you, like canopies, cycle parking and new platform lighting across more of our stations. Find out more and book your tickets at southernrailway.com. Southern Railway, we're with you.
The Iowa caucuses were an epic fail, a fiasco, and an invitation for suspicion.
No matter what the results are now, they're going to be questioned in terms of their authenticity.
How we got this system in the first place and other details from primary
And on this week's On the Media from WNYC. Listen to the On the Media podcast from WNYC Studios on TuneIn today.
Joe Biden are Sanders' biggest rivals, and both of them have done really terribly in these first two contests. Warren did okay in Iowa, but really did poorly in New Hampshire. So between Biden and Warren faltering, that's where Sanders, I think, really benefits.
So the former vice president, Joe Biden, has had two disappointing outings now, first in Iowa and then in New Hampshire. At the same time, he says he really needs and will really do well in South Carolina and Nevada. Does he have that firewall there? Can he do that? Because let's be frank, Iowa and New Hampshire do not represent the country in terms of demographic makeup.
Yeah, and specifically, they don't represent the Democratic electorate in that, the Democrats are a multiracial party. Iowa and New Hampshire have electorates that are 90% plus white. So we knew many months ago that Biden probably was not positioned to do all that well in Iowa and New Hampshire, but because those states are so white and because Biden has benefited from the support of non-white voters, particularly African Americans. But it's easy to say 6 months ago, hey, Biden's not going to do that well in Iowa and New Hampshire, and then to actually live through it and to see how poorly he actually did, not even cracking double digits in New Hampshire. And I just wonder if we're sort of looking at Biden right now as sort of a snapshot of him in the midst of a free fall. We're sort of seeing that in the national polling, in that Biden has ceded the top spot to Sanders in the most recent data we have. And he's getting squeezed by Sanders. He's also getting squeezed, frankly, by Michael Bloomberg, who seems to be taking some of the African-American support away from Biden more so than Sanders is. So Biden at least can look at Nevada and South Carolina and say, hey, I might be positioned to do better in those places. But boy, if he doesn't, I don't know where he goes from there.
Okay, and of course, Michael Bloomberg is the founder and majority owner of Bloomberg LP, our parent company. Let's talk about not just the race for votes, but the race for money, because that counts a lot as well, as you know, Kyle. How are the candidates doing there? How bad is Joe Biden? How good is Bernie Sanders? Because when we're looking towards Super Tuesday, it's going to cost a lot of money to buy all that media in California and Texas, places like that.
Yeah, and Biden's fundraising was never particularly good. And in the most recent fundraising reports, I think he only had about $9 million cash on hand, which is not that much money in the context of a presidential campaign. Someone like Amy Klobuchar hasn't had a lot of money to build out an operation in these future states. But it sounds like she's getting some money in based on her good performance. Sanders has demonstrated a lot of small dollar fundraising. So again, that's another challenge for Biden is, does he even necessarily have the resources to continue? What often forces candidates out of these races is not necessarily the will to continue, but just the money to make it all work. I don't know what Biden's status is as of today, but as of the most recent fundraising reports, he wasn't doing that well, and nothing has really happened to think that he would get a big influx of cash.
Kyle, the ultimate goal here is not just winning the nomination, but winning the presidency. Did we learn anything from Iowa and New Hampshire about the possibility of the Democrats coming out in enough numbers to vote out President Trump? What about voter turnout? It was somewhat disappointing in Iowa, somewhat better apparently in New Hampshire.
Yeah, I think that's right. The Iowa turnout was not that great. New Hampshire was better than 2008, which of course was a very high interest primary, but that was also 12 years ago. You have to account for population gains. You also have to account for the fact that there wasn't really a contested Republican primary that would sort of compete for voter attention. So I would say that 2020 turnout in New Hampshire was not really as impressive as 2008. But certainly a better sign for Democrats. Although I would also say it's not necessarily demonstrably proven that primary turnout is predictive of success in the fall. Obviously a party wants more people to participate than less. But you also hear from some Democrats that there are a lot of voters out there who may be paralyzed by the immense number of choices they have, and that they're just willing to wait out the primary and vote against Trump in the fall. So I think there are some kind of mixed signals on the turnout front.
So, Kyle, as you know so well, it's not just how many people vote, but also why they're voting and who they are. Do we have any crosstabs yet? Any of the things from the exit polls would indicate the demographics of who turned out and voted? What happened with the independents in New Hampshire? What issues may have voted the people who did show up to vote?
I would say that while the turnout was pretty robust in New Hampshire, it wasn't necessarily a demographic makeup that was particularly favorable to Bernie Sanders. And Sanders, of course, has run on this idea that he's a transformational candidate who would fundamentally alter the electorate. And while Sanders won, again, he ran a little bit behind his polls. I would not say that he had some sort of dominating showing. I do think it calls into question a little bit his ability to really turn out a lot of young voters in particular to support his campaign. And if the theory of the fall is that it's more about turnout than it is persuasion, I don't know if we've seen great evidence for that from these limited results that the Democrats are going to be able to do that in the fall. But again, the president is not in particularly strong shape himself. 2016, I think, was a race where voters felt like they had two kind of weak choices. I kind of wonder if a lot of people may feel that way this November, too.
Fascinating. And, of course, President Trump went out there and sucked a lot of the oxygen out of the room with that big rally up there. It looks like he's going to basically hound the Democrats right through. He likes to keep the spotlight, and he's pretty successful at it. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and he has to insert himself in every story. I sometimes wonder if the president would be better off if he would just fade into the background a little bit. It seems like his numbers sometimes get a little bit better when he does that. But that's certainly not in his DNA. And I suspect that as these Democrats barnstorm the country, not just the shadow of the president will be following him, but the president literally himself will be doing these events, as we saw in New Hampshire, and I'm sure he'll do that in the future as well. He did in Iowa as well before that. He went out to Iowa for a visit just before the caucuses. Okay, many thanks now to Kyle Kondak. Always great to have Kyle with us. He's managing editor of Larry Sabato's Crystal Ball. Still ahead, MGM Resorts is in the crosshairs. The company is dealing with the fallout from the coronavirus, and now the CEO is leaving. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio.
Rich is just a really good guy. The term good egg isn't enough to describe him. He's also certified organic and free range. Rich puts the cap back on everything. The toothpaste, the olive oil, the shampoo, everything. He lets his 10-year-old nephew beat him at virtual tennis, even though he can straight up slay his 10-year-old nephew in virtual tennis. When the toilet paper is running low, Rich replaces the roll on the actual holder, not just on the back of the toilet. Rich is texting and driving. Rich? No. What are you doing, Rich? I was just telling everyone how great you are. Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
You know your body, and you know when something's off, when something doesn't feel quite right. Don't ignore symptoms like fatigue, joint pain, rashes, and fever. They could be signs of lupus. Listen to your body. Take care of yourself. We're here to help you take control of your health. Learn how at BeFierceTakeControl.org. Brought to you by the Lupus Foundation of America and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
A PAC needs someone to follow.
It's got to be important for somebody to have a breakout moment.
Don't look now, but they're behind you.
Imports declined 2.8%.
Bloomberg Daybreak.
Sources tell us that agreement is expected to include commitments on U.S. intellectual property.
With Karen Moscow and Nathan Hager.
Could we see that play into the results and the forward guidance?
Weekday mornings at 5 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and on radio. I'm David Weston. Time now for our stock of the hour. MGM Resorts is one of the day's worst performers. The stock is sinking more than 5% as investors digest a slew of bad news. Kaylee Lines is here with more. Slew of bad news. I think that understates it, if anything, Kaylee.
There's a lot of things that are not working in MGM's favor today. One is that fourth quarter earnings and results really just disappointed. Morgan Stanley saying they were weaker than already low expectations. On top of that, the company's CEO Jim Murren announced he is going to step down prior to the end of his contract. Now, he's going to stay on with the company until a successor is named, but this really was a surprise. He's been at the helm since 2008. He's been with the company for over 20 years, and reportedly some of this may be due to conflict with the board and some other activist investors over their asset-light model that the company has recently switched to, selling off its real estate and leasing it back. Regardless of whether or not that's the reason, this comes at a period of really great uncertainty for MGM. On top of all of that, today, the company withdrew its guidance for 2020 because of the impact on of the coronavirus. They say it just makes its outlook really look unpredictable. It's an issue not only in Macau, where we know casinos are shut down. The company's saying they're losing $1.5 million a day while that shutdown goes on, and there isn't a clear end in sight, but also in Las Vegas, because you're not getting those Asian travelers, those baccarat players coming over to Las Vegas to play here in the U.S., and those numbers are down about $100 million in 2019 than they were the year before.
But they're going to make it up to shareholders by buying back some of the shares, right?
They're going to try. So they did announce that share buyback, trying to sweeten some of this bad news a bit. $3 billion share buyback that included a $1.25 billion tender offer that started today, and they also upped the dividend by about 15% to 15 cents. But that same Morgan Stanley analyst I was talking to earlier said that buyback program really has limited incremental value, given the fact that the underlying business and the stock are just really not performing well.
Yeah, it's a puzzle to me because the board was there when he went to the asset light and he sold the real estate. So what's changed since then? The board must have approved this.
Yeah, and I would say there's mixed reception on the street to this as well, whether or not this is a good idea. Now, there was some activist pressure involved in that as well. Yeah. Some on the street really do like this asset light model. There's supposed to be a lot of more people coming to Vegas because of the new football stadium, etc. But some are saying that this really wasn't the correct direction to go. Regardless, the deal, it's already done. And the question is, what does the company look like now going forward under a new CEO?
In any event, a lot of changes at MGM Resorts. Okay, thanks so much to Kayla Lyons for that report. Up next, the ripple effects from the coronavirus are spreading wider and deeper by the day. What's it mean for the global auto industry? We talk with Sig Huber here of Conway McKenzie. This is Bounce of Power on Bloomberg Television and on radio.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. The World Health Organization says a spike in coronavirus cases doesn't necessarily mean there's been a sudden surge in new infections, so U.S. stocks are mixed. The Dow is falling 36 points, S&P up 1, the Nasdaq up 7 points. The cost of living barely budged last month, up just 0.1%.